Hello, and welcome back to another video. This is the 17th episode of story in which the 4th Shinobi World War was over, and Naruto was finally captured by Madara. But is hope truly gone? And what the heck is happening to the Ghetto Mazo? Join our favorite blonde hero and the nine-tailed beasts on their great journey to the past. Let's see how Naruto deals with this. After you've finished watching, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. To begin, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Let's get this show going. What do you mean Orochimaru attacked the chamber of the sealing scroll? Hiruzen looked at the Anbu who was running next to him while sprinting to the aforementioned chamber himself in full speed. There is no alarm from the barrier team. How did he even get into the village? I don't know, Hokage-sama, the Anbu member wearing the cat mask answered in a nervous tone. But it was Orochimaru who attacked. I was there when he came, but Tiger and Wolf told me to go get you when they tried to hold him back. I don't know what happened to them after that. The Hokage grimaced. If Orochimaru really came for what he thought the bastard was aiming for, go find Jiraiya at the hospital and tell him to go to the chamber of the sealing scroll immediately, he ordered Cat. Do not tell him why, and do not let anyone else know about this, especially Naruto Uzumaki. The Anbu answered with a yes sir and changed her direction towards the hospital. Hiruzen himself also sped up towards the chamber, his stomach twisted in a sudden dread. Jiraiya-sama, Lord Hokage wants to see you in the chamber of the sealing scroll immediately. Please depart as soon as possible. The Toad Sage looked at the female Anbu who had just entered Naruto's hospital room and laughed. Ah, Kitty-chan. How is Hayate these days? Is he still good in bed? Naturally, she kicked him in the shin. Please, go immediately. This is an urgent problem. Jiraiya's face turned serious. He turned back to Naruto. Right, if that's the case, it seems I have to go now. Take care, brat, good luck on getting used to your new arm. Then he disappeared together with Cat with a body flicker. I wonder what happened, Naruto thought. It is rare for Gigi to summon Pervy Sage so urgently. And why the sealing scroll anyway? Maybe it has something to do with Orochimaru. Naruto jerked up in surprise. What? What does Orochimaru have to do with this? Who else can be so obsessed with that sealing scroll? Kurama answered him with a snort. There are gazillions of powerful destructive jutsu written in there, and even secrets from the beginning of Konoha. Besides, he already tried to get his hand on it once, remember? Well, if you say so, there are still a lot of other people who would trade everything for a chance to get their hand on that scroll, Muratabi pointed out. Besides, even if it was actually Orochimaru, there is nothing we could do about it with Naruto in this state, right? That's true, Kokuo agreed. And to be honest, it's too late to prevent what that person whoever the hell he is wanted to do anyway. Let's just leave it to the adults. What you need to do right now is resting and getting familiar with that arm. We are going to need you at your full power as soon as possible. Well, yeah, Naruto mumbled. Hope there won't be anything bad happen when I'm locked up in here. Ugh, seriously, I hate sitting around uselessly like this. What the hell happened, sensei? Jiraiya asked while walking across the corpses of the two Anbu members on the floor into the chamber of the sealing scroll. The Hokage looked up from the sealing scroll on the ground, which he was looking at. Orochimaru attacked. The Toad Sage's eyes widened. What? How is that even possible? How could he even get into the village anyway? That's what I'm wondering, Hiruzen answered him. It might be possible that there are hidden pathways in his old hideouts within and at the border of the village. I already sent Anbu to check all the hideouts known to us, hope there will be some clue. Right on cue, an Anbu body flickered into the chamber. Sir. We found a hidden pathway in the collapsed hideout a kilometer to the northeast of the village. It reaches very deep underground and leads to the main sewer system of the village. It is possible that Orochimaru used this route to go into the village without being seen or tracked by the barrier. There were also very new traces of Orochimaru's chakra in the pathway, he must have passed through it to enter the village and escape. Did you destroy that hidden pathway? The Hokage asked sharply. When the Anbu nodded, he ordered. Good. Send word to the other divisions to check clearly and destroy every other found pathways like that just in case. Also, contact the barrier team and tell them to extend the barrier down to at least 20 meters underground, we cannot let something like this to happen again. Dismiss. After the Anbu had departed, Jiraiya shook his head. Well, at least Orochimaru didn't manage to steal anything important. Actually, he did manage to steal something important, Jiraiya. Those words actually sent Jiraiya into a stupor. What? Yes, Hiruzen looked at him and answered in a grim tone. What he managed to steal was the mask of the Shinigami. For a while, There was only silence in the room. Then, "What the hell is that?" Hiru's inside. "I forgot that you don't know about that. Remember during the sound invasion, we prepared the Reaper Death Seal as the last resort against Orochimaru, due to the fact that it was a dangerous but effective sealing jutsu which no way to unseal it exists?" When Jiraiya nodded, the Hokage continued. "Right. During the time you went and trained Naruto and Fu, I dug deeper into the jutsu itself, and found out a very interesting information. There actually is a way to unseal something sealed by the Reaper Death Seal, and only the Uzumaki clan knew about it. No document ever writes about that at all, except for a very small footnote I accidentally found when reading through a basic sealing book on the bookcase in the first sold house. It was seemingly written by Mito-sama herself. Had I not wandered into the house and took that book out by chance, I wouldn't have found it. The best way to keep a secret is to leave it out in open air, it seems. And that way was that mask thing you talked about?" The Hokage nodded. "Yes. That mask was stored in the mask shrine of the Uzumaki clan at the border of the village. After finding out about it, I immediately took action and moved all of the masks in the shrine here, and put 3 Anbu members guarding it all the time." He waved his hand towards a corner of the chamber, where Jiraiya could see a case with about 20 masks lying on. There was an empty slot. It must have been where the mask of the Shinigami had been lying on prior to the theft. I don't know how Orochimaru found out about that secret, but from his action today, I think he is planning to do something with the Reaper Death Seal. Jiraiya's face started paling. If he manages to unseal the Reaper Death Seal, you don't think he's going to? Yes, Hiruzen nodded with a deathly grimace. If what I guess isn't wrong, he is planning to bring back the old Hokages, and this time, all of them. Then suddenly, he snapped the scroll of sealing close and started walking out of the chamber. "Where are you going, sensei?" The Hokage answered while disappearing behind the entrance of the room, not even turning his head back. "Going to do what I need to do. This time I'm definitely not going to let Orochimaru summon all the old Hokage back again." Uchiha groaned. He knew that he was saved. If he weren't, he wouldn't be alive by now. And the light which was piercing his eyelids right now was too bright to be in a cave. And if he was dead, there was no way his body could feel this tiring and painful. He groaned again, and cracked open his eyes. "Ah, he's awake." The voice of the woman rose next to him. "Where am I?" he croaked. His eyes still couldn't see anything because of the harsh light. He blinked a few times, and finally, when his vision was clear, he saw a red-haired girl standing next to where he was lying, looking tired but triumphant. "You're back at Kirigakure, Uchiha," the familiar voice of Zabuza rose next to him. "It was thanks to Konoha's help that we managed to rescue you from the Akatsuki." "Noha?" Uchiha tried to push himself up with his right arm, but the redhead standing next to his bed immediately pushed him back down. "You have just barely come back from death, you must not force yourself until you are completely fine." "Doctor's order," she scolded him with a voice he amusedly thought to be the voice of an annoyingly caring mother. Then he heard another voice, and this time he felt a wave of relief washing over him. "Oh, Uchiha-san is up? You're awesome, Karen-chan. I told you could do it," he chuckled. No wonder. Konoha really did send their best, after all. A few seconds later, the familiar face of Fu appeared above him. "Morning, Uchiha-san. How was the sleep?" The male Jinchuriki gave her a slight smile, and this time, he pushed himself up, ignoring Karen's protest. "Hello, Fu. I'm fine now, I guess. But somehow I feel my body to be a bit disturbed. But I guess that's normal, after what the Akatsuki did to me." "And that's what I'm talking about, mister," Karen snapped in annoyance. "Your body and overall is okay, but due to the sudden expansion of your chakra core from the intake of chakra thanks to the seal on your stomach, your chakra network is mostly ruined. You are not allowed to do any ninja work for at least 3 months, and don't you dare try to access your tailed beast's chakra if you don't want your body to explode." Silence ensued. "I didn't think it would be that bad when I asked Jiraiya-sama to apply that new seal on me." Finally, after a few seconds, Uchiha uttered. Karen shook her head. "I can't believe someone like Jiraiya-sama could even agree to help you do that to yourself." "Oh well, since it was already done, there's nothing I can even do about that anyway. But remember, do not do anything related to using chakra at all for at least 3 months, do you remember?" Uchiha's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Fine. It's not like I can do anything about it anyway. After all, there is nothing I can do with my tailed beast without Jiraiya-sama unlocking the seal." "Wow, Karen-chan has become such a scary medic, huh?" Fu whispered to Tenten who was standing next to her. "Nah, this is nothing comparing to Sakura when she is at work," Tenten whispered back. Trust me, when she tells you that you have to rest, you'd better rest, or else. Right at that moment, the voice of Haku, who was running towards where the group was at, broke the moody atmosphere. Everyone. Lady Mizukage has awakened. Thank you very much for coming to help us in this difficult time so promptly, Konoha Shinobi. I, as the Mizukage, would be honored to do anything within my power to repay you for this. Do not fret about it, Mizukage-sama, Anko waved her off. Hokage-sama told us not to ask for anything from you, at least for now, so you can just focus everything on fixing the damage coming from the assault. He would welcome it if Kirigakure send their assistance when Konoha gets into trouble, though. Mei Terumi smiled. That will do. Once again, thank you for giving us your help. Everyone looked at the female Mizukage. While awake and clearly alive, the wounds on her head, face and body still hadn't completely healed, and the bandage everywhere on her made the woman look like a mummy. Her face still held a tired expression from the exhausting battle with pain which nearly took her life. Hard to believe the beautiful and sultry Mei Terumi could someday look so pathetic. She narrowed her eyes at Itachi. Uchiha-san? I thought you were already forbidden from doing ninja missions? Why are you here? I'm not here for a ninja mission, Mizukage-sama, Itachi answered her, still utterly stoic. Hokage-sama only told me to deliver a bowl of ramen to Pain. This rescue mission was just something I happened to stumble upon on my way. Everyone face-bombed. Yeah, as if there was such an overpowered ramen deliverer in this entire shinobi world. Karen snarked. Itachi glared at the girl. This is serious business, Karen-san. That battle took away my chance of delivering the ramen successfully to Pain. There is no way I would get the tip from that failed delivery. Everyone face-palmed again. Right, so if everything's done here, Zabuza raised his voice, I have to go assist in the recovering of the village. Have a lot of work to do here. We can help with that, Fu offered. Karen-chan here is a very good medic, and I can use the shadow clone jutsu in a large scale. I think we can do a lot more to help. After all, Hokage-sama told us to provide assistance to Kirigakure as much as possible. Yosh. Time to go out there and help. Lee pumped his fist enthusiastically and rushed out of the room, forgetting even his teammates, who were rushing after him in annoyance after giving a hasty apologize to the Mizukage. Guy was the last one who exited the room. However, after everyone else was already out, he suddenly stopped on his way and turned back to Mei. He looked at her with a serious face no one had ever seen on him before. Actually, there is one thing I want to ask from you, Mizukage-sama. This is not an official request from Konoha or something, it is more like a personal favor. But if you cannot fulfill it. Mei frowned in surprise. This is quite unorthodox, but if it is within my power, I would be more than glad to fulfill your request, Guy-san. What do you need me to do? Guy's sharp eyes met the opposite woman's. It is just some information I want to know. I want to know what happened to a kunoichi of Konoha, who was captured by Kirigakure during the Third Shinobi World War. Her name is Rin Nohura. There you go. All done. Your arm is as good as new now. But remember, don't do anything too hard to hurt it again. Alright? Thank you, pretty Nei-chan. Karen sighed pleasantly and stood up after the little boy she just healed ran away with a bright smile on his face. It had only been 3 years since she left Orochimaru to join Konoha. And yet, the village had changed her so much she couldn't even realize herself whenever she reflected on her own past. Before, she was a bratty girl whose sole purposes were to prove herself worthy of Orochimaru's attention. But now, living in Konoha, surrounded by comrades and friends, she realized that there are things that are more important than just stubbornly holding on the pride of a clan she barely knew about thanks to the words of Orochimaru. Things like love, friendship and family, and the joy of helping people, for example. Although, sometimes things like those were very tiring. Just like at this moment. Want a drink? She turned, and saw Ju-Uga standing next to her, holding out a bottle of water. She smiled and took the bottle from the man's hand. Thanks, Ju-Uga. How is the reconstruction? The man of Team Anko chuckled. Pretty good, actually. We managed to rescue all people stuck under the collapsed buildings at the west side of the village. Some of them. His face suddenly fell. Well, there was nothing we could do for them, but a lot were brought out safe and sound, and Kirigakure's medic team is tending to them right now. I guess they would be alright, Karen sighed and smiled. Well, guess there are still works for me too. She couldn't finish her sentence before starting to stagger forward. Fortunately, Jugo managed to catch her before she could collapse on the ground. You're running out of juice, he scolded her. Surely it won't be good if you collapse here before we can finish our mission. So just take a rest for a while first. Unable to refute, the girl had to sit down on a rock nearby, albeit a bit unwillingly. She weakly chuckled. Hey, it must be pathetic to see an Uzumaki run out of chakra, huh? Juugo chuckled back. Don't say that. Even though you are an Uzumaki, you are still a human, not a limitless tank of chakra. You can't blame yourself for getting tired, right? Sometimes you need to think about yourself before worrying about others, you know. Then he sat down next to Karen, relaxing himself. The two continued staring into the blue sky, on which clouds were floating across their view lazily. Even though they were in a battle zone right now, moments like this still managed to bring a soothing and calm feeling to their hearts. You know, before, I didn't think I could ever see sunlight again. Being with Orochimaru and things, Juugo suddenly said. I didn't think I would ever say this, but well. I'm kinda glad Orochimaru took me with him to the Konoha invasion 3 years ago. Living at Konoha actually changed me a lot, Karen laughed. Nah. You are always a good guy at heart. It's not like living in Konoha changes you, it's more like it brings out the true you which had been suppressed inside you living with Orochimaru. If there is someone who changes, I think it would be me. When I was still with Orochimaru, I have to say that I was a bitch. I didn't care about anything other than what Orochimaru told me, that I was a member of the prestigious Uzumaki clan, and by serving him with all I have, I would prove myself to be worthy of that name. Now, I have to say, even though it was the past already, I still feel embarrassed whenever I think about it. Everyone has their good and bad sides, you know, Juugo chuckled. You are a good girl too, it's just that you don't know it. You are better than a lot of other girls I've ever known. Aw, are you flirting with me? The Uzumaki girl teased him with a grin. The man only chuckled. Nice try, but I already had a girlfriend. Besides, don't you also have someone who you're going for? Karen pouted. You're no fun. Right at that moment, a voice boomed behind them. Hey, the two over there. Are you going to help, or just sit there like a couple of lazy asses and watch clouds all day? Ugh, what kind of jerks? Karen muttered in annoyance. She snapped her head back, preparing to deliver a torrent of insults to the face of the one who had just spoken. And her eyes met a pair of violet eyes. The eyes of a certain Suigetsu Huzuki. Silence filled the air for a few seconds. Then, yo-oh-oh-oo-oo-oo. The next thing Karen saw was a huge black iron blade coming down on her head. Now, Naruto, try to flex your index finger. Gently. Naruto tried. But just like before, it was useless. The only thing he could do right now was to twitch the finger a little bit. Ugh, this is hopeless, he complained loudly. This is even more difficult than with a fake arm. At least the fake arm could still move around. You still haven't changed at all, Naruto. Sakura shook her head, her face frowned up in annoyance. You should be glad that you already managed to twitch your finger. You've just received the arm for a single day, for Kami's sake. Just be a little bit patient, will you? Easy for you to say, Naruto muttered. You're not the one who had to do everything with the fake arm for 3 years and then got it cut off to replace with something which is no better than a piece of wood at the moment. Naruto, I swear to God, if you say another word, I will. Sakura's threatening was cut off when someone knocked on the door. Naruto-kun? Are you in there? Naruto glared at Sakura. You really did that, didn't you, Sakura? Sakura snickered. Now let's see if you dare acting like that in front of your girlfriend. Come in, Hinata. Don't worry, we're both dressed properly. A squeak of protest could be heard outside. A few seconds later, the door opened, and Hinata poked her head in. Her face was blushing like crazy. I heard that you were having a surgery, so I'm here to visit you. If I'm interrupting something, I'll leave. No, Hinata-chan, no. Naruto hastily waved his working hand. Sakura is just helping me practice with this new arm. Seriously. We're not doing anything bad? The Hyuga heiress couldn't help but letting out a small giggle at the antic of the boy she loves. Only now did Naruto notice what the girl was holding. What are you carrying in that box, Hinata? Hinata's cheeks turned pink again. She placed the steel box on the table next to Naruto's bed, opened it and took out a bowl of ramen. It's nearly lunchtime already, and from what I heard, your arm might not be able to work properly after the surgery, so... Naruto shot a glare at Sakura. The pinkette just grinned back at him cheekily. So. Do you want me to feed you? Naruto stared dumbly at Hinata, whose face was getting redder and redder by seconds. Sakura's snicker was also getting louder and louder. Oh. The Hyuga girl looked down dejectedly when she saw Naruto's reaction. If you don't want me to. No, no, no. Naruto panicked. I really want you. Oh god, that came out wrong. I mean, I would be glad. What? Sakura couldn't hold herself back anymore. She collapsed on the ground, laughing her ass off while the couple's faces became two giant cherries. Screw you, Sakura, Naruto yelled at her in embarrassment. Just get out of here and leave us alone for a while, will you? Sakura retreated from the room, still laughing like a mad woman. The couple turned back to each other, now that the annoyance had been kicked out of the room. The bowl of ramen was steaming innocently in front of the two blushing faces. So. Naruto swallowed. Let's do it? Hinata nodded meekly. This is my first time, so. If anyone standing outside of the room right now managed to hear this without looking into the room, there's no doubt a very indecent rumor would break out about the princess of the Hyuga clan and the Uzumaki brat. And unfortunately for them, there was someone standing outside of the room right now. Naruto, you bastard. What the hell are you doing to Hinata? Kiba kicked the door down and burst into the room, yelling furiously. Meep. The poor girl yelped, and the bowl of ramen on her hands flew upwards into the air in her attempt to hide her embarrassment. Naruto's eyes widened. His precious ramen's gonna be. No, he yelled, leaping up from his bed. His hand reached out towards the falling bowl. But it's too far from his left hand's reach, there's no way he could get it in time. Grah. What the hell is going on here? Sakura ran into the room upon hearing the screams. Then she blinked when she finally realized what was going on. Naruto was lying face down on the ground. His hands were holding the steaming bowl of ramen she saw Hinata brought him earlier. Hinata was sitting like a statue on the bed, mortified, and next to her, Kiba was fuming and snarling, and Shino had to do his best to hold him back from tearing Naruto apart. Wait a minute. His hands? You. After so much effort we spent in vain. Managed to use your new arm to save a bowl of ramen? 5 minutes later, the group was sitting in Tsunade's office, while the legendary medic checked out Naruto's arm. Interesting, Tsunade mused. So basically, when Naruto felt that his ramen was in danger, he somehow unconsciously used his new hand to catch it without even knowing how. Yeah. Basically that, Naruto reluctantly admitted. But it's kinda useless, I cannot do it again after that. Tsunade walked around the room, pondering something. Then she walked towards Hinata and whispered something into her ears. Naruto didn't know what she told the girl, he only saw Hinata's eyes widening after hearing it. Tsunade left Hinata, then started to walk around Naruto again, this time stopping at his right side. Then without any warning, she cocked her fist back and sent a punch at Naruto's face. The strike was too fast and powerful, no one around him was able to react in time. Naruto felt his life flashing through his eyes, nothing's gonna stop his head from being pulverized by that monstrous punch. And the punch stopped right before it could land on his right arm, which was now being raised in front of his face, just 1 single centimeter. No one could even say anything for a few seconds. Then, Naruto exploded. What the hell is that, Bachan? Are you trying to kill me? Ignoring Naruto's angry shout, Tsunade turned back and asked. So, Hinata, have you found the problem? I think I did, Tsunade-sama, hesitantly, the Hyuga girl answered. It seems there is a problem with the nerves inside Naruto-kun's arm. At the moment, they are all lying dormant without any activity, but when you punched him, there seemed to be some forced action from his body which made the nerves active for just a few seconds. If there is a way to jump-start those nerves, I think it might be possible for the arm to work properly. Tsunade smiled in satisfaction. I knew I didn't make a mistake saying that you would make a promising medic in the future. Alright, now that you have found the cause of the problem, I guess you would want to be the one who solves it? Me? Hinata was startled. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not as good as you or Sakura-san. I believe you can do it, Hinata. Sakura grasped her on the shoulder. Besides, she added with a cheeky grin, this is your chance to show your Naruto-kun what you can do, isn't it? Hinata turned beet red at these words. However, she took a deep breath, and nodded confidently. Yes. I will do it. Luckily for Karen, Juugo had reacted in time. The black blade of Shibuki was stopped dead on its way by a blade formed on his arm right before it could cleave the Uzumaki girl in half. What is wrong with you? Karen tried to protest, but before she could even push herself up, she had fallen flat onto the ground. Her effort in healing as many people as she could had drained her body completely, and in her thrill, she hadn't even realized it. Karen. Juugo glanced back at her, but that was the only thing he could do. because the swordsman in front of him was not only skilled, but was also coming at them with the intent to kill. "Did Orochimaru send you two here to take me back to him?" He heard the opposing swordsman growl. "Well, too bad. You are not going to bring me back, or at least, you are not bringing me back alive." He thought, "We're still with Orochimaru? Wait." He hastily said. "We're not with Orochimaru. We're here too." Suigetsu didn't even let him finish. "Bullshit," he snapped. "I know who you are, Juugo of the Scales. And that bitch Karen over there. I will never go back to Orochimaru again. Water style, waterfall barrage. Crap." Juugo immediately raised his arms, and a pair of shields formed around them right before the jutsu slammed into his body like a torpedo. He staggered back, his arms trembling like crazy. And that opening was enough for Suigetsu to push on his assault. In a blink of an eye, he appeared at the left side of Juugo and Karen, his sword raised high. Die. Exploding tags poured out of the scroll on their blade and swirled around on the air like a dragon. Juugo's eyes widened. If this hit, then not only he and Karen, but the whole section of Kage which had just been fixed behind them would be blown into smithereens. He started gathering all of his chakra into his palms. There is no other choice, countering the move with an attack of the same level would just make things worse. He needs to shield everyone from it with everything he has, or else. But before he could even do anything, something else had already stopped the incoming attack. It was a giant needle with a very thin, but sharp string of ninja wire at the end, one of the legendary swords of Kage, Nuabari, the long sword. It cut through the dragon made of exploding tags easily, and wherever it passed through, the tags were frozen immediately into cubes of ice. "What? That's enough, Suigetsu." The voice of Zabuza cut through the air, immediately stopping Suigetsu on his way. The commander of the new seven swordsmen walked towards him, with the usual bandage off his face. Everyone could see the stern scolding expression on him right now. Next to him was Haku. It was obvious that she was the one who launched the sword to save them. "What is going on here?" the swordmaster demanded. "I didn't teach you to attack guests of the village on sight like that." "Guests of the village?" Suigetsu pointed his sword at the two opposing shinobi angrily. "They are Orochimaru's lackeys. What the hell did you think to let them walk around the village like this?" Zabuza immediately understood the situation just from those words. He shook his head. "I don't know whether they used to be Orochimaru's minions or not, but right now, I can assure you that they are not. They are Konoha shinobi now, and they're here to help us save Utakata." Suigetsu's eyes narrowed. "What? That's what we're trying to tell you," Karen groaned. She had managed to push herself up. "See this?" She pointed at the Hittite around her neck. "I'm a full-fledged Konoha shinobi now. I don't have anything to do with Orochimaru anymore." "Me too," Juugo nodded and pointed at his own Hittite, tied around his left bicep. "And thanks to Konoha, I'm not the mad monster I was before, and I'm serving them willingly without any regret." Suigetsu was taken aback at this development. He looked back and forth at the two Exato, now Konoha shinobi, unable to say anything. Then he clicked his tongue in annoyance and jumped away without even a word. Everyone looked at Suigetsu's retreating back for a few seconds. Then, Zabuza turned to Karen and Juugo. "As the leader and commander of the Seven Swordsmen of the Mist, I humbly apologize to you for this trouble my subordinate caused you." Anything related to Orochimaru, Suigetsu always took very seriously. The time he was captured and locked up at Orochimaru's place was a very hard time for him. To his surprise, Juugo waved his hand. "It's all right. After all, I know how it is to be under Orochimaru's grip. I used to be one of his victims, too. Had he not brought me together with him to the invasion of Konoha 3 years ago, I might have never been able to see sunlight again, to be honest." "Yeah," Karen agreed. "I knew him during the time I was with Orochimaru. He was one of the experiments who suffered the most in the hand of that snake. I didn't pay much attention to him at that time, but now that I think about it." The four people didn't say anything for a while. Then, Zabuza sighed heavily. "I've never known being a leader would bring so much headache. I can't believe it. So this is what you mean when you said that you won't let Orochimaru summon the 3 previous Kage?" The third Hokage answered his student's question, while not even lifting his eyes from the scroll he was working on. "Yes, there is no other way. I really don't want to do this, but it is something I must do if we don't want things to go pear-shaped." He finished the final line on the scroll, then put something inside it and snapped it close. He turned his eyes towards the 2 other figures in front of them, the 2 white Zetsu which had been captured by Naruto and his team in the previous mission. "Ready, Jiraiya?" the Toad Sage grumbled. "Even if I'm not ready, there's no way to stop now. I swear, You're getting crazier and crazier by days. I really don't know if that's a compliment or an insult anymore. Now. Hiruzen flashed through a series of hand seals, and slammed the scroll on his hand to the ground. Summoning, Impure World Reincarnation. Naruto nearly jumped when he felt the sudden emotion surging from inside his head. What's wrong, Saikyo-chan? Is someone attacking us? No. Naruto was startled, the voice of the normally timid-tailed beast was now full of joy and excitement. I remember this chakra. It's him. What? Who is him? Suddenly, Kurama butted in. Naruto, this is a big problem, she said urgently. That chakra signature Saikyo has just felt. It was of the first Hokage. Someone has brought him back from the death again. Naruto's eyes widened in horror. He jumped out of the chair he was sitting on, and forgetting about his currently useless right arm, and the fact that he was wearing a hospital gown, he dashed out of the room before anyone could even stop him. What the? WHO dares summon us back using my forbidden jutsu again? The voice of Tobirama Senju shook the room. Chakra and killing intent flooded the air. If the people in the room were not extremely powerful shinobi themselves, they would have choked to death from the sheer pressure. Even Hashirama Senju, the one who was considered nicer and more cheerful than his brother, was also exuding malicious killing intent. His eyes glanced around the room, looking for someone who seemed to be bad enough to have dared using the wicked jutsu to summon him back from the death. But in front of him, there were only two people, who were his student Hiruzen Sarutobi, and Jiraiya of the legendary Sannin, whom he had met a few years ago during the invasion of Konoha. Saru, you'd better give me a good explanation for this before I kill you and your student. He cracked his knuckles threateningly after knowing for sure no one else could have done the work. To his surprise, the expression of his old student didn't change. Lord First, Lord Second, I'm really sorry for summoning you two back using this vile jutsu, the third Hokage Boden said in a gravely tone. But I can assure you that I didn't summon you for any malicious reason. I summoned you to prevent Orochimaru from laying his hand on you again. And if you want to ask, yes, he is alive, and is definitely stronger than ever, as there are not only one, but 6 of him right now. If he manages to get you under his hand, I'm afraid it won't be as easy for you to break away as before. The eyes of Tobirama narrowed. How could that even happen? I remember seeing this guy blasting him to shred with my own eyes. He pointed at Jiraiya, who unconsciously took a step back. Hiruzen shook his head. We thought so too, at first, but turned out Orochimaru knows a jutsu which can split his soul into parts, and hide those parts in different vessels for him to take over when a part dies. After he was killed by Jiraiya, the other parts of his souls awoke and turned into copies of him with all of the original's memories, skills and jutsus. And those vessels he had were also his loyal servants with powerful Kage Genkai of their own. We tried to stop him. But, noticing the 2 elder Hokage still looking at him with suspicion in their eyes, the third Hokage continued. I didn't summon you for any reason other than preventing Orochimaru's action, so you're completely free to do anything you want, as long as they're not immoral. The only thing I want to request from you is that you are not going to dispel yourself until after Orochimaru is killed or captured. I cannot risk him calling you back from the dead again. The 3 Kage and Jiraiya glared at each other for a few more seconds. Then, Tobirama sighed. Humph, if you had to go that far just to bring us back, I guess I would give you the benefit of a doubt this time. But if I find out you were lying, then you are welcome to do anything you want to me, I won't fight back, Hiruzen answered smoothly. Well, now that every problem has been solved, can we start talking about why that boy over there contains the chakra signatures of not only Saikyo and Kurama, but also those of the other 7-tailed beasts? Hiruzen and Jiraiya snapped their heads towards the direction Hashirama's finger was pointing at. Naruto was standing right at the entrance of the room, mortified by what he was seeing. Well, the third Hokage said awkwardly, this is a long story. That is actually the most absurd story I've ever heard in my life. And death. Naruto looked at Hiruzen upon hearing those words from the second Hokage. Deja vu much, huh? Right now, the group was sitting in the secured Hokage chamber. I mean, who the hell can believe that? The white-haired Hokage continued his rant. Madara was brought back, sure, maybe it was possible, but soloing an alliance made up of all 5 great villages by himself? And time travel? It is scientifically impossible. No living thing in the world could survive it, even if there actually was a way to do that. Don't ask, he's always like that, Hiruzen shook his head. Naruto sighed. Well, maybe you will believe me if you meet these guys. In 2 puffs of smoke, 2 other figures appeared in a room. And Hashirama was immediately tackled by a blur of white. Yep, This is Saikyo, indeed, the first Hokage nodded while absently rubbing the hair of the bawling girl on his lap. That girl is always like this when she's with you, huh? Kurama, the second appearing figure, chuckled in amusement. Tobirama suddenly made a strange movement of his body, as if someone had just shocked him with hundreds of volts of electricity. Wait a minute, he said with a strained voice. You mean this woman? She is. Yep, Hashirama nodded before Naruto could open his mouth. She is Kurama, the nine-tailed fox. The second Hokage's mouth flapped open and closed like a fish. He glanced at his brother, who was smirking, and to Naruto, who just looked confused, then to his student, who was scratching his head. Finally, his eyes landed on the woman, who had just been revealed to be the tailed beast of Konoha. Hi, dear, she waved at him cheerfully. Tobirama fainted. Naruto blinked. What's wrong with him? Well, let's just say he kinda had a very big crush on Kurama here when he was still alive, Hashirama chuckled. Well, that was awkward. Jiraiya, the one who hadn't said anything for a while, gave his opinion. I can't believe it. My own brother, tricking me into falling for a tailed beast. Hey, what's wrong with falling for a tailed beast anyway? Kurama complained indignantly. We have feelings too, you know. But. You. Isn't it? Ugh. Whatever, the tailed beast in human form waved her hand dismissively. I've never said you're good enough for me anyway. Ugh. That burns, you know. Ignoring the couple in front of them, Hashirama turned to Naruto while still petting Saikyo on the head, making the slug girl mew in bliss. So, Madara came back, huh? Naruto nodded solemnly. Yes. He was so powerful even the whole shinobi world couldn't leave a scratch on him. How did you even defeat him before anyway? The first Hokage chuckled. Well, if you ask me, I have to say that I was lucky, I guess. He was incredibly powerful even in my time, with the Mangekyo Sharingan, Rinnegan and everything. Comparing firepower, he might have exceeded even me in that aspect. I had to use all the skills and experience I had just to survive against him. But sometimes, even a lucky hit would make all the differences in the world. Naruto's spirit deflated like an empty bag. If someone like the first Hokage himself cannot be sure that he could defeat Madara, how can he do it? Then something popped up in his head. Can you teach me, old man? If I want to stop Madara, I need to be stronger. As strong as you, believe it. Hashirama blinked. That catchphrase. Hey, so he is an Uzumaki, just like her. No, I cannot. Before Naruto could protest, he continued. At least with you at this condition, he pointed at Naruto's slacked right arm. I could feel a little bit of my chakra mixed in that arm. Did someone who made that arm for you use my cells or something in it? Naruto nodded. Yeah. Tsunade Bakken did it. She said that there was no other way to make the arm work, so she had to do that. Suna-chan has really become a great medic as she wished, huh? The eldest Hokage chuckled. But anyway, that arm is not working right now, so you are not in any condition to train or work as a ninja. Come back to me when you manage to get it work, then I will consider. Now. He stretched on the chair he was sitting on. It's time to enjoy my undead life again. The three living people in the room sweat dropped. He's really weird, huh? Jiraiya nudged his teacher. Hiruzen nodded solemnly. Yes he is. And during the whole conversation, Kurama and Tobirama had still been bickering non-stop. Hiyashi Hyuga blinked when he saw his eldest daughter sitting in the clan library, reading what looked like a bunch of scrolls about the usage of gentle fist in battle. He knew that his daughter didn't like fighting, and she preferred to use her gentle fist skills in ways that allow her to disable her opponents in non-lethal ways. That's why he encouraged her to become a medic, knowing that she wouldn't have to use her power to harm people if they didn't attack her first. And she was very happy with that choice, too. So why was she in the library now, researching about techniques of gentle fist that could only murder people in the goriest ways? What are you doing, Hinata? The poor girl nearly had a heart attack when she heard her father's voice right next to her. Father. Hiyashi looked at his daughter sternly. You don't have anything to fear. I already told you not to be afraid of everything like that. Besides, why are you researching battle techniques? I thought you don't like fighting. Hinata lowered her head. It's actually not for fighting, father. When she saw Hiyashi raising his eyebrow, she hastily added. It's just. Naruto-kun has just received his new right arm from Tsunade-sama. But it isn't working at the moment, so Tsunade-sama assigned me to find a way to make it work. And I thought. Since the gentle fist can be used to shut down tenketsu and nerves, Maybe there would be a way to reverse that effect. To jumpstart dormant nerves instead. The Hyuga patriarch nodded. I see. So it is for the sake of the boy you like. Surprisingly, Hinata shook her head. Naruto-kun's arm is just one thing, father. I'm hoping that if it's possible, I want to make it a way to heal people. If it could help Naruto-kun, then it could also help other paralyzed people, bring them back to normal lifestyle. If I can do it. That answer took Hiyashi by surprise. Even though Hinata had advanced so far during those 3 years, he still didn't expect his daughter to be able to give him such mature and incisive words. For a moment, he felt like he was seeing, in place of his daughter, the image of his beloved deceased wife. You're not going to find anything like that here. Finally, after a moment of silence, he said. Follow me. Hinata blinked when instead of leading her to a hidden chamber or a vault, her father just led her to his room. Hiyashi opened his wardrobe and took out something from the top shelf. It was a book titled Gentle Fist for medical purposes. The book looked very old. Even without activating Byakugan, Hinata could still see dust and spider webs clearly on the cover. Gentle Fist is an art developed by the ancestors of the Hyuga clan for battle, not for healing, Hiyashi said, throwing the book towards Hinata, and she hastily caught it. Therefore, when anyone proposed the idea of using it as a way to heal people, they are usually laughed at by other members of the clan, and most of them gave up before they could even do anything to develop their ideas. Except for one person. Who? Hiyashi stared into Hinata's eyes with a strange look. She could somehow feel a hint of grief and sadness in his eyes. Your mother. Hinata looked at the book on her hands in awe. So this is. Yes, the Hyuga patriarch nodded. This is all of your mother's research about the use of Gentle Fist in medical treatment. When she, well, died, I moved it here, since I thought no one could, or was worthy of following what she wanted to achieve. I have to say that I was selfish. But now, I think I found the one who is worthy of inheriting her achievement. Hinata couldn't even say a thing. Her father walked towards her, and clapped his hand on her right shoulder. I'm proud of you, Hinata. She could swear that she saw a ghost of a smile crept across his face when he said those words. You had some problem in the past with that Suigetsu guy, don't you, Karen? Karen looked up at Juugo in surprise. How do you know that? Anyone can see that with just a glance. The shinobi of Ryudo clan shook his head. There's no way anyone would try to cut your head off in just a glimpse if you didn't do anything to them in the past. Juugo's statement hit bullseye. Karen had no other choice but to sigh. I did. It was a story of 6 years ago, when I was still Orochimaru's underling. The white-haired, purple-irised boy was thrown to the ground in front of Karen. He looked up at her with an expression full of hatred. Orochimaru-sama? Who is this? Orochimaru answered her with a smirk. This is a prisoner we captured in the mission. He is a pretty famous shinobi of Kirigakure, and he has quite an interesting ability. And since you are practicing that sealing jutsu, he would be the perfect vessel for you to practice on. Suigetsu's eyes widened in horror. In contrast, Karen's eyes glinted menacingly. Really, Orochimaru-sama? Orochimaru's smirk widened. Of course. But I expect you to have result in a week, or, Karen giggled giddily. Oh, I promise, Orochimaru-sama. And yeah. Karen finished with a deep sigh. You know I wasn't a very good seal user at that time. And I kinda got his body stuck in his own jutsu. Juugo blinked. Like how? Well, the Hozuki clan has a special jutsu which can liquidify their body to make it immune to all physical attacks, as well as increase their strength and everything. Karen sighed again. And you know what happens if you mess with seals without knowing what they do? He ended up being a blob of water, and couldn't stay in human shape until a few years later. Juugo winced. Yeah, I can understand that. So, I guess you didn't manage to do anything to him afterwards. Karen shook her head. Nope. I deserted Orochimaru before I could even do anything. You know how bad Orochimaru's teaching was. I couldn't learn anything much from him besides a few basic seals. Besides, you know how bratty and Orochimaru worshipping I was before. Even if I'd had the necessary skills, I wouldn't have thought of doing that to a guy I barely knew. So basically, you ruined a person's life without even bother trying to do anything to fix it. Both Juugo and Karen nearly jumped out of their skin. Neither of them even knew when Itachi arrived behind them. Itachi-san. The newly arrived Uchiha had just looked at her with an expression of someone looking for confirmation. Karen sighed. I know, but at that time, we were at war, and Itachi raised his hand to stop her. You don't need to explain. I understand you. Karen blinked. You do? The Uchiha nodded. I, too, had a time when I acted like nothing else mattered, that my way of thinking was the only thing right in this world. I didn't care anything about other people who might get hurt on my way of achieving the greater goal. But now I realize that the world doesn't just revolve around me. And I found that instead of just sit around mourning about what we did in the past, it is better to find a way to fix what we did using what we have at present. Karen looked at him in surprise. You think it might work? Whether it works or not, I don't know. But considering your past with him, I think that is the best thing you can do right now. After all, countries aren't built in a day with words alone. Karen bit her lips in silence for a few seconds. Then she stood up, bowing at Itachi. Thank you for your wise words, Itachi-san. Another tree exploded under the rain of exploding tags coming from Shibuki. Damn it. Suigetsu leaned on his sword, breathing heavily. No matter how they insisted, and what other people in the village said, he could never believe it. He would never believe that those two would stop being Orochimaru's lackeys. Whenever he saw Karen's face, the terrifying past always came back and struck him like a giant hammer. He could never forget that face. That accursed girl. Even thinking about it made rage boiled inside of him. That little bitch, abandoning Orochimaru and switching side? Like hell he could believe that. Suigetsu Hozuki. He lashed out without even thinking. That voice which had just rose. It was by no doubt the voice of that bitch. He had listened to it for years, there's no way he could mistake it for anything else. The torrent of exploding tags rushed towards the target, aiming to turn her into a bunch of chunky salsa. However, the attack couldn't land at the intended target. Chains had sprouted from the ground and formed a dome around her, effectively stopping the exploding tags and the incoming explosions from reaching her. You. Suigetsu snarled and lowered his stance, ready to leap forward. Please stop. I'm here to talk to you, not to fight you. Suigetsu couldn't believe what he was hearing. Talk? Talk? He screamed. After what you already did to me? Well, too bad. I don't have anything to say to you. Eat my blade and die. He jumped forward, and his blade once again descended down Karen's head. The Uzumaki girl tensed up, ready to launch her chains again to defend herself. But this time, he didn't even have a chance to touch her. A green blur suddenly appeared from nowhere and before Suigetsu could even react, had kicked the blade of the sword so hard it was ripped from his hand and wedged itself deep into the body of a tree nearby. Karen's eyes widened. Lee-kun. No matter how deep your hatred towards her is, I cannot let you harm Karen-san, the taijutsu specialist of Konoha said in a low voice no one had ever heard from him. There was no hint of anger or hatred in his voice, but for some reason, Suigetsu felt himself involuntarily taking a step back. But he recovered almost immediately. You don't know what you are doing, Konoha, he snarled. Back off before I. Before you do what? Lee cut him short in a sharp voice. Killing both of us? That would be a gigantic violation of our alliance, especially after we saved your Jinchuriki from the hand of the Akatsuki. And Karen-san is our precious comrade, there is no way I can allow her to be murdered by the hand of anyone if I can help it. Precious comrade? Ha, Suigetsu sneered. Once Orochimaru's minion, forever Orochimaru's minion. Just wait until that bitch stabs you in the back. I believe that Karen-san will never do that to us or to anyone, Lee said in such a confident tone that even he had to feel surprised. Suigetsu's eyes narrowed. Oh yeah? And why are you so sure about that? Because I'm here to ask you for a chance to redeem myself. The two men turned towards Karen, who had just said those words. She continued, solemnly but confidently. I know what I did before were hideous and unforgivable, and I'm definitely not looking for your total forgiveness. But I want to ask you to let me do something to fix what I did before. I was a terrible person in the hand of Orochimaru, but after leaving him for Konoha, I understood a lot of things I couldn't even imagine about before, and I have also learned a lot of things. I'm confident that now I can even fix the faulty seal which put you in your misery. If you allow me, I will try my best. No, everything I can to fix it. Silence filled the air in a few seconds. Then Suigetsu laughed. Not a happy, cheerful laughter, but a cold one, full of maliciousness and hatred. Even if you might really want that, he said in a tone Karen could feel the venom dripping out of it. Why do you think that I would let you do it? Jiraiya-sama already fixed my body years ago, there is no place for a bitch like you to lay your hand on. Just take your grief and uselessness with you to the grave. Then he snatched his sword off the tree trunk and walked away, not even throwing back a glance at the two Konoha shinobi. Disappearing from Karen and Lee's view, he nearly jumped when a voice rose right next to his ear. That's not a nice thing to do, Suigetsu. He turned. The one who had just said was his teammate and fellow swordsman, Shiro Ishigaki. He scowled. "You don't understand anything." "Probably," Shiro nodded, leaving the tree he was leaning on. "But humans are better than animals because they can change. If I could change from a loser of the village into a member of the prestigious Seven Swordsmen, then there is nothing saying that other people cannot. What matters of a person is how they will be in the future, not how they were in the past. You should think about it before doing anything I know you will regret." Then the white-haired man walked away, leaving Suigetsu alone with his thoughts. "Tsunade-sama, I found it." Tsunade looked at the Hyuga girl who had just run into her room with a bright smile full of hope and confidence. "Excellent, Hinata. So when are we going to start?" Hinata answered her with a similar smile. "As soon as possible, my lady." "Alright, Naruto, I have to warn you that this might hurt a little bit." Naruto looked at Tsunade with terrified eyes. "What do you mean, a little bit?" Tsunade waved him off. "Oh, you'll see. Just remember to brace yourself first. It can't be as bad as when you had your arms chopped off, can it?" "Hinata?" The aforementioned girl gulped. "Why yeah. And Naruto-kun, it will hurt a bit, so can you try to endure it for a while?" Naruto looked at Hinata, his fear started fading away under the girl's gaze. "If you're here with me, I'm sure I can do it, Hinata-chan." "Ugh, this is so sweet, I'm sure I'm gonna get diabetes later." Sakura, who was standing next to them, wrinkled her nose in mock disdain. "Can we start it already?" Naruto took a deep breath, then nodded. "Okay, I'm ready." Tsunade looked at Hinata. Then. The Hyuga girl nodded, meekly but confidently. Then, she raised her right hand, and delivered swift pokes to 10 exact points on Naruto's right arm. "Huh? That's it?" Naruto blinked. "I thought it would be." Then, pain. Naruto screamed when utter agony wrecked his right arm, coursing through his body and piercing his brain. The pain was so intense, so terrifying, he couldn't breathe anymore. Thousands of tiny sparks ignited in front of his eyes like a storm of fireworks. He couldn't see anything. He tried to say something, but words seemed to stick in his throat. Not a single sound was uttered out of his mouth except for choked screams of agony. Then everything went black. A few seconds later, or that's what he thought, Naruto groggily opened his eyes. "Ugh. What hit me?" "Technically, it was Hinata who hit you," Tsunade's voice answered him from above. "But it seems everything was a success. Sit up, will you?" Naruto groaned. He pushed himself up from where he was lying, now confirmed to be the sofa in Tsunade's office. "My body feels so sore." "Was that supposed to happen?" It was supposed to happen, Naruto-kun." Hinata, who was standing right next to the sofa, smiled apologetically. She sat down next to him and reached out her hand, squeezing his right hand. Naruto's eyes widened. He could feel Hinata's warm hand with his new hand. It seemed Tsunade also realized it, because she smirked and said in a mirth voice, "Naruto, try moving your right arm." Hesitantly, Naruto tried to lift his arm up. And to his surprise, the new arm shot up to the sky upon his command. While still too much comparing to before, at least it was much better than the useless state it had been just a few moments ago. He could now move it around freely without any restriction. "Yosh. Now I have both of my arms again. I feel stronger than ever now." Naruto-kun. Actually, even though you can move it now, you still need some time to get accustomed to your new arm. Since it used to be an alien object, you need time to learn how to channel chakra properly into. Gya? Hinata couldn't finish her sentence. Naruto had engulfed her in a big, hearty embrace. "Thank you, Hinata-chan. I owe you a big time." Then, he kissed her on the cheek. Tsunade sighed and rubbed her nose bridge when the poor girl went out cold in Naruto's arms. "Hiyashi is gonna make a gigantic fuss about this, isn't he?" Sakura waved her off. "Nah. I heard that he already approved of Hinata and Naruto. Hell, now I can even say that he's one of the biggest shippers of them, to be honest." Hinata-chan. The task force of Konohagakure was standing in front of the main gate of Kirigakure, ready to leave. Together with them was the Mizukage, and the members of the new Seven Swordsmen. "We wish you good luck on your way home," the female Mizukage said with a smile. Anko took the hand Mei was reaching out with her own cheerful smile. "Thank you. We also wish you good luck on your effort to rebuild the village. Oh, and by the way," Mei suddenly remembered. "About what you asked me, Gai-san. Here is all the documentation I could find about Rin Nohara in the currently salvaged documentation chamber of Kirigakure." She gave him a folder she was holding on her hand. According to them, The prisoner named Rin Nohara was captured during the event of the Third Shinobi World War, and was held in custody of the village for 3 years. However, she was released at the end of the war when the fourth Kage, Yagura Karatachi, took over the hat, and whatever happened to her after that was unknown. Guy took the folder from the Mizukage's hand with a grimace. I see. Thank you very much, Mizukage-sama. Meanwhile, a heated glaring battle was breaking out between the members of the Seven Swordsmen and the Konoha team. No, more like. Suigetsu was throwing a glare full of seething anger at every member of the Konoha task force. It seemed he was losing his trust on Konoha for taking in Karen as well. Don't bother with him. Before words could escape her mouth, a voice already rose. Not from Suigetsu, but surprisingly, from Haku. Letting him become like that is our fault as his teammates and superiors, the girl bowed apologetically. I assure you we will reprimand him for that behavior. No, please don't do that. What Karen said surprised everyone. Why? Haku blinked. What happened to him was my fault, and after a night of thinking, I realized that it won't be that easy for him to forgive me for what I did. The girl answered confidently, but her eyes weren't focused on the person she was answering, but on Suigetsu himself. So please, you don't have to punish him for what he righteously did. I will do everything I can to gain his forgiveness on my own, and I won't stop until I reach it by myself. Believe it. Even Suigetsu was taken aback by those words. Therefore, you'd better prepare, Suigetsu, she continued, now looking straight into his eyes. Someday I will make you see that I have changed, that I am not the person who obsessed with Orochimaru and would do anything for him anymore. I will show you that I deserve your forgiveness, no matter how you think of me right now, and you should prepare for that day to come. Then she turned and walked away. Zabuza stared at her back, which was becoming smaller and smaller on the dirt road. Wow, that girl could even turn an apology into a death threat. That's actually a talent. Don't encourage her, Dad, Haku deadpanned. So, Anko coughed, I guess it's time for us to depart. Hope we'll see each other again in the future. Yeah, the Mizukage answered her with a smile. Good luck on your trip back, friends. Please give Lord Hokage our thanks and best wishes. The goodbye waves of the Kirigakure citizens still followed the Konoha shinobi even after they disappeared at the horizon. Another crisis was averted, and the bond between Kirigakure and Konohagakure had become tighter and closer than ever. The village hidden in the mist would need quite some time to recover fully, but with what they had just experienced, they knew that it is possible for them, as well as the shinobi world, to overcome anything which might be waiting for them in the future. But that's a story of the future. Right now, it's time for them to rebuild and reborn. The dark, humongous shape of the statue of the outer path loomed over the walls of the cavern. How is the statue? Damaged quite badly. It seems we are not going to store any tailed beast into it at least for a month or two. The Akatsuki members looked at the statue. While still intact, the vessel had suffered quite a lot of damage, thanks to Fu. There were numerous scratches and chips along the body of the statue, and a huge scorch mark could be seen at the belly of the statue, where Fu's final attack landed. Even though the statue was repairing itself, it would take quite some time before it could fully recover. So, we have suffered another loss. Everything we did, showing ourselves to the world, waging war with two of the great villages, only to fail horribly, losing half the force we have, and not only unable to capture any Jinchuriki, but also got the vessel damaged. Data sneered. What a way to give the villages a war they would remember. Yeah. The mad bomber didn't speak about anyone exactly, but the implication behind his words were too clear to ignore. Everyone standing in the chamber cringed. Surely there's going to be a rage burst from Pain, and the fool would be murdered in a blink of an eye. But before Pain could do anything, who said that this is a loss? Data blinked. This isn't? Even though we failed to extract the six tails completely, we still managed to gather most of its chakra in the statue, Toby answered in place of Pain. The Jinchuriki of the six tails is not going to be able to use his tailed beast for a while. Moreover, we also managed to cripple two of the great villages. The balance between the great villages is now lower than ever before. That's an advantage for us to exploit when going for the other tailed beasts. But that also means we're now the #1 enemies of the world, Sasori pointed out. It would make our activities from now on way more difficult than before. And now with all the other tailed beasts either dead or in the hand of the great villages, what are you planning to do? Konan glanced at Toby. The masked Uchiha, since the assault of the third Hokage and Jiraiya at Omigakure, had been trying further and further to take over the Akatsuki from Pain's hand. And Konan knew that not only her, but the other members of the Akatsuki also realized that problem. But the problem is, there was nothing she or anyone could do about that right now. Even though Toby hadn't shown anything that could be considered dangerous since his appearance except for his teleporting ability, there was still something in him that made everyone worry. Maybe it was his mysteriously alluring, manipulative charisma, or maybe it was his intimidating inner aura that any powerful shinobi could feel standing near him. This was actually the first time anyone raised their voice against him. What matters right now is, Toby was saying, we need more people. Not the kind of useless cannon fodders, we need skilled people with great power in their possession. Our loss of Kakuzu and Hidan under the hand of the Nine Tails really took us back a lot. And this mission has shown that it is impossible to fight the Nine Tails with sheer number alone. We should hold back on tailed beast hunting for a while and try to recruit more people first. At least we need to wait until the statue finishes repairing itself, he added, seeing the expression of the other members. Just do what you think is the best. Pain waved his hand towards Toby, then turned away and walked out of the chamber without saying anything else. When the back of Yahiko's body disappeared from her view, Konan knew. It was time for her to do something about Toby, or if the worst thing happened. She needed to save Nagato. Taking him away, abandoning the Akatsuki, whatever. There's no way she could leave her friend in the hand of Toby. Outside of his missions and his time with his family, it is rare for Naruto not to spend all his time training. Usually he could be found in Training Ground 7 all days, practicing jutsus, or doing battle strategy training with Sasuke and Sakura during their breaks, or things like that. So it was a surprise for his teammates to see an empty Training Ground 7 when they walked into the clearing. Especially in a free day for everyone like this. Huh, that's weird, Sasuke raised an eyebrow. It's so unlike Naruto asking us here and then ditching us. That Naruto. Sakura growled. Making us waste a whole day off like this. If I get my hand on him. Wait a second, Sasuke suddenly said. Do you hear something? Sakura blinked. There was some voice coming from afar. It sounded like screams? And it was from above? She looked up and gasped. Oh, shit. Ah. Get away from there. No, scratch that. Catch me please. Ah. Sasuke nimbly stepped aside, right before Naruto's face crashed painfully on the hard ground of the training field at the very same place he had been standing on just 1 second ago. Ow. What the heck happened, Naruto? Sakura asked in concern, kneeling down next to her teammate. Why did you fall from the sky? Answering her was just a groan of pain. The medic sighed, and reached down to pull Naruto up. Oh, stop that you big baby. It's not even that painful to you. Yeah, just crash your face to the ground falling from the height of 20 meters and say that to me again. I dare you, Naruto snarked grumpily. So what happened? Sasuke asked, looking down at him. If you're learning how to fly, then crashing your face to the ground is not the way to do it. Naruto glared at his best friend. Don't you have anything nicer to say? No, I'm trying to create a new jutsu. That was just a side effect. That piqued Sasuke's interest. Oh? New jutsu, you say? What is it? I'm trying to make a kind of armor with wind chakra, Naruto explained. You know, wind chakra can cut everything it touches, right? So if I can create an armor made purely of wind chakra, nothing would be able to touch me at all. And it would also help me gain a lot of awesome abilities, too. The only problem is, well, whenever I tried to use it, it always blew me up to the sky. Just like before. He trailed off. Sasuke and Sakura winced at the same time. Naruto, do you know how dangerous your idea is? Sakura croaked out in a strained voice. Wind chakra is incredibly potent in cutting power. Covering yourself in a tornado made purely of wind chakra is just like throwing yourself into a giant mixer. One single slip of control and you will turn into minced meat. Even I wouldn't dare thinking of covering my whole body with that kind of chakra, and you know how good I am in chakra control already. Naruto blanched. I actually didn't think about that. Well, luckily you didn't lose control on any of your test run, Sasuke snorted. It would be bad for Konoha's appearance if the most powerful Jinchuriki of the village were turned into chunky salsa by his own stupidity. Well, there goes another idea into the trash bin, Naruto muttered. I actually thought I could do something with what I just found out about wind chakra. Sakura blinked curiously. What did you find out? Naruto grinned, and pulled out a flying thunder god kunai. Watch. Before Sakura and Sasuke's surprised eyes, the kunai started disappearing from their view. What? Where did it? Naruto's smile spread even further. That's not all. Watch this. Then he made a swift throwing motion with the hand the knife had been on just a moment ago. A surge of wind suddenly blasted out from his place and in a blink of an eye, The bark of a tree nearby exploded with a violent force and toppled over with a sickening crack. And when Sasuke and Sakura looked closer, they gaped when realizing that the cause of the destruction was the very same kunai on Naruto's hand earlier. Wow, Sakura could only utter that single word. I actually didn't think of that, Sasuke stated, rubbing his chin in interest. Wind is actually just the shift and movement of air particles, so it might be possible to distort the refraction of light and make things hidden under it completely invisible if you use multiple layers of wind on top of each other. Yup, Naruto said happily. And the application of wind on weapons makes them way more powerful and destructive, just like turning them into mini tornadoes, I guess. What should I name it anyway? Invisible air? Nah, already used. Empty wind? Too generic. But it would take a lot of chakra just to create and maintain that kind of barrier, the Uchiha pointed out, and the weapons need to be strong enough to be able to handle such large amounts of chakra to be channeled into them. And wind element is very rare, too. So the only person who might have a chance to use it effectively is you. Damn it. Why do you only create jutsu that only you can use? He pouted. I don't see why not. After all, a shinobi needs to understand his own abilities, and devise a way to effectively use them on their own, doesn't he? The three shinobi snapped their heads back. Standing at the other side was a familiar black-haired man with an ear-splitting grin. Lord First. Sasuke and Sakura immediately bowed, while Naruto just shrugged. Man, the first Hokage walked into the training ground. Training ground 7 is still the same as ever, eh? Just like I remember it during my time. I don't know if I should ask this or not, but... Naruto asked hesitantly. What are you doing here, old man First? Sasuke and Sakura cringed from their teammates' language, but their worries were for nothing. The first Hokage gave Naruto a cheerful smile. Oh, it's for your test. Finally, after some thinking, I decided to give you a chance. Test? Naruto blinked. What kind of test are you going to give me? The Hokage's smile didn't change, if anything, it just spread wider. A fight against me, of course. Silence in 5 seconds. Then. What? I should have been envy of Naruto, but right now, I can only say that I'm more worried for him than thinking about that. Of course Sasuke should be worried. Naruto's opponent was going to be one of the greatest, no, the greatest legend of all time, the first person who brought peace to this land, and the one who defeated Madara Uchiha not once, but a lot of times in the past, even at the Rogue Uchiha's strongest. And now Naruto had to face him alone. Even though Naruto was way more powerful than he used to be before, comparing to someone like the first Hokage, he was just like an ant. What could he even do against someone like that? But Naruto didn't even seem to faze. In fact, he was smiling. You ready, old man First? He called to the other side. I'm going in with all my power. Good. The undead Hokage also answered excitedly. I also want to see how strong you actually are. The two fighters glared at each other in exactly 5 seconds. Then at the 6th, Naruto was the one who moved first. 5 kunai were launched from his hands towards the first Hokage, covered in his newly created jutsu, just like 5 invisible bullets made of wind. But, to Naruto's shock, the undead Hokage raised his hands, and slapped away the wind-enhanced kunai like nothing. That technique might be powerful to half-assed shinobi, but to people with abilities, especially someone with sensor power, it is just some kunai being thrown with more force, nothing else, he said with an amused chuckle, catching the last one with his hand. Naruto answered him with a smirk, and appeared in front of the undead Hokage in a blink of an eye. Around him, 4 more Naruto also appeared, each holding a Rasengan, all charging at the first Hokage, aiming to obliterate him in one attack. But, with an extremely quick movement, the first Hokage grabbed the real Naruto's wrist with his left hand before he could even land his attack. And with his other hand, which was holding the kunai, he formed a tiger hand seal. One-handed hand seal? Oh, crap. The ground around them exploded violently. Naruto's shadow clones were immediately engulfed in a torrent of rock, dirt and debris before they could even reach Hashirama. Naruto could only widen his eyes in shock when the memories from the clones rushed back to his head, before the undead Hokage released his hand and delivered a brutal kick to his stomach, sending him flying. Arg. Don't forget, the one who created that flying thunder god jutsu is my brother. Hashirama wagged his finger mockingly while throwing the kunai back at Naruto, which embedded itself in front of him. Half-hearted moves like that won't let you touch me. Be careful, Naruto, Kurama warned him from inside. He is the first Hokage, the one who tamed every tailed beast and defeated Madara not once, twice, but a lot of times. You can't afford to hold back against him, even in a mock battle. So what? Continued the first Hokage, still with the mocking tone. Do you have anything else to offer, or should we conclude it here? No. Not yet. Naruto had crawled up from the ground. On his face, there was a big grin, full of determination. I know you are powerful. More powerful than anyone I've met, he said, the grin still not leaving his face. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give up here. I and my partner will show you the power of our bond. Our full power. Sync with me, Kurama. Vibrant orange chakra exploded from Naruto's body. It swirled around him, forming a tornado around the blonde Jinchuriki which spread even to the clouds above. But somehow, the chakra was still calm and gentle. Everything it made was a gentle breeze sweeping across the training ground. Soon, the tornado died down, forming the usual glowing chakra cloak around Naruto. Seeing Naruto's transformation, Hashirama couldn't help showing a big grin. Impressive. I've never seen anyone able to control Kurama's chakra to that extent, even my wife, or Madara. The bond between you two must be incredibly deep. Then, his grin suddenly turned into a slasher smile. I guess it's time for me to get serious. He clapped his hands together into a snake hand seal. From the ground, giant tree roots with sharp tips erupted and launched themselves towards the glowing Jinchuriki with incredible speed, with the clear intention of skewering him to death, or at least ensnaring him to the ground. And Naruto started moving. With Kurama's chakra enhancing his body to its very limit, he nimbly danced around the sea of tree, leaping up and down, left and right, dodging every root aiming for him. His pair of swords were unsealed in a burst of smoke, and with a powerful battle cry, he slashed through the last roots like they were made of butter. With the way cleared, he dashed forward with a burst of chakra, his swords aiming at Hashirama. But, to his horror, the swords enhanced to the max with wind chakra were stopped dead on their way by a blade made of wood forming along his right forearm. Good swords, the undead Hokage grinned. With those words, he thrust his other free arm at Naruto. The Jinchuriki's eyes widened, with that sound and pressure he felt, as well as the blur Naruto could see it where the arm was supposed to be. There was no doubt it had been covered in wind chakra, something the other members of Team 7 had just outright declared to be impossible. Naruto immediately threw his body to the left, and it was incredibly fortunate for him that he did just that, because the left arm of the first Hokage exploded forward with a loud bang of sheer pressure. Even though the attack didn't hit, Naruto was still tossed violently away, his head once again collided with the ground. Even with his chakra cloak activated, he still felt his brain ringing dangerously. Glancing back at the first Hokage, he saw the undead man grinning cheerfully when his destroyed left arm started regenerating. Damn, you're right. That kind of technique isn't something you should use if you don't want to lose half of your body. Luckily I have an indestructible body, eh? Naruto and the other members of Team 7 could only gape. Lord First is so strong, Sakura murmured in awe. No wonder why he was called the Tailed Beast. Conqueror, the one who defeated Madara Uchiha. No. His strength is just one thing. What is so fearsome about him is that he exuded all that power without even a change in his expression. Sasuke grimaced, his Sharingan never left the battle in front of them. Even though he was fighting someone like Naruto. He's still all smile and goofy, just like that. Just like he's toying with Naruto himself. Who the hell in the world could? Actually, that's just him being him. The two Jonin snapped their heads back to see the third Hokage, together with the second Hokage walking towards them. They immediately bowed. My lords. My brother actually always despises the idea of fighting to the death, the second Hokage said. He always thought that taking a life is a big sin that would bring forth the cycle of hatred to the poor souls related to the dead. Therefore, in his life, whenever he thought he could spare the lives of his enemies, he always did his best to do just that, and treated all of his fights as practice spars no matter how powerful his opponents might be. He only started fighting seriously when he felt that he had no other choice but to go all out against true enemies, ones who threatened his precious people. Ones like Madara, for example. Hearing the name Madara made Sasuke grimace a bit. Don't worry about Naruto, though, the third Hokage raised his voice. He has grown enough to know how to take care of himself. After all, in a battle like this, with the two combatants people with the same mindsets and ideas of life, they are the ones who should be able to understand each other the best just by trading blows. Naruto jumped back a few steps while reasserting the situation. He had tried different ways to engage the first Hokage in direct close combat. However, the defense of the undead Hokage was too solid and had absolutely no hole for him to exploit at all. Even if he considered what the second Hokage had just said to be true, This man was still so ridiculously strong to the point he could consider toying around in a battle with a full-fledged Jinchuriki who had the deepest bond and complete control over his tailed beast's power, like him. Time to change tactic. With a sudden movement no one in the training ground could expect, Naruto threw his twin swords at Hashirama. The two swords flew in two beautiful curves towards the reincarnated Hokage, who deflected them easily with his arm blade. But that was enough distraction for Naruto to do what he needed to do. He spread his hands, and water chakra started gathering and spinning around his palms. In 3 seconds, two swirling water Rasengan with the shape of two small shuriken formed in his palms. Water was the element Naruto was the most efficient with beside wind, and he actually preferred it more than other elements in a fight which didn't require massive destruction. Still, the power of the Rasengan enhanced with water chakra was still something that could not be underestimated. With a yell, he threw the two little Rasen shuriken at the first Hokage, and this time, the reincarnated man had to throw up a wall made of tree roots to block the attack. The two shuriken collided with the wall and detonated into two violent whirlpools, which tore apart the wall with a sickening ripping noise, to the surprise of the Hokage. With the route opened, Naruto dashed through the gap, with the element of surprise on his side. He's definitely gonna land the first hit this time. His right fist was glowing brightly, much more brightly than the cloak of chakra surrounding him. A lot of chakra had been focused into that fist, and he sent a vicious uppercut at Hashirama, aiming for his chin. If the attack landed, it's going to hurt for sure, zombie Hokage be damned. It seemed the first Hokage also realized this, because he immediately leaned backward. Naruto's body was lifted up by the momentum, and the punch only scratched the skin of the Hokage's chin a bit. "Hey, missed me," Hashirama grinned. And Naruto answered him with his own grin. "Nope, think again." On the air, the blonde Jinchuriki spun. His chakra-filled fist stopped mid-air and slammed down on the first Hokage's head with a force which, while not as powerful as before due to the lack of movement, was still enough to potentially cave the reincarnated Hokage's face in if he didn't do anything to stop it. And naturally, the Hokage did just that. He raised his arms, hiding his face from Naruto, and the Jinchuriki's fist collided with the undead Hokage's arms. The force coming from the punch was so great it sent Hashirama crashing into the ground of the training field, making a rather large crater. Naruto exhaled. He had landed the first hit. But his eyes immediately widened when the first Hokage's hands moved into the snake hand seal again. From his lessons with Saikyo, he already knew that the wood style of the first was unique in that he could launch attacks from anywhere near him, not just from the front. So this incoming jutsu would be from above? From the left? The right? Below? Or wood style, razor storm. A shower of razor-sharp leaves bombarded Naruto from everywhere around him. Not from the left, not from the right, not from above, not from below. The leaves sprouted from every branch and root Hashirama had created earlier, and now Naruto was feeling the deepest regret of not cleaning all of them up as soon as possible. The chakra cloak was protecting him from the worst effect of the razor leaves, but he knew it wouldn't be long before one of them found its way through. "Ha!" he yelled, and chakra exploded around him. The force blasted all the leaves coming for him away, and taking that opportunity, he backed away from the barrage. A Kurama head made of chakra formed around him, and shot a beam of chakra at the root forest below, obliterating all of them in one hit. Naruto landed on the ground, breathing heavily. And this time, Hashirama was the one who took the lead. Blades sprouting from both of his arms, he dashed towards Naruto and swung at the Jinchuriki's head. No. Not yet. Naruto immediately swung his hands to the side. And to everyone's surprise and shock, the pair of twin swords which were lying at the side of the battlefield disappeared in two flashes of light and reappeared on Naruto's hands, who used them to block the slash of the first Hokage. Naruto winced when he felt the force of the clash. Even though the arm blades were made of wood, they were just as strong and hard as genuine steel. The blades clashed against each other, once, twice, many times, leaving deafening sounds of collision in the air with each blow. Naruto's swords made of refined steel against the first Hokage's crude, but incredibly powerful wooden blades, none of them budged a single inch. After a particularly nasty clash, the two combatants jumped away from each other. Naruto breathed out. Never before in his life had he ever fought a battle like this. The first Hokage was, he had to say, peerless, but for some reason, he didn't feel scared or overwhelmed like the time he fought Madara. Instead, he felt excited. But he didn't have the time to feel good about that, because at the other side, Hashirama had already finished another set of hand seals. Where he even got the time to undo his arm blades and perform the hand seals from, Naruto didn't know. The only thing he could do was bracing himself, ready for the incoming jutsu. Earth style, just as Springer. Dirt rose from the ground, and to Naruto's horror, they gathered up and formed hundreds of hovering rock fists. He knew immediately what he must do. He clapped his hands together. Hundreds of blades, all types, appeared hovering around him. But he knew that wasn't enough to counter the first Hokage's jutsu, no matter how many normal blades he could produce. Then what he needed to do was, he flared up his chakra, and as the barrage of rock fists rained down on his head, the blades around him, overcharged with chakra, flew up and met the fists in the air. The multiple explosions nearly deafened all people standing there, pushing the two combatants back and sending shrapnel everywhere, forcing the spectators to raise walls of dirt to avoid being skewered. From behind their barriers, they heard Hashirama laughing. "Good, very good. You managed to stop my barrage. But let's see what you can do against this." A gigantic fist, thousands of times bigger than the ones raining down before, hovered above Naruto's head. Okra. Before the Jinchuriki could even finish his thought, the giant fist had launched itself down at him. Without thinking, Naruto threw himself backwards desperately, and fortunately for him, the fist missed him and slammed hard on the ground. The shockwave from the punch was strong enough to send the Jinchuriki flying. Ugh. That's not the end. Wood style, deep forest emergence. The ground exploded again, and this time, not only roots, but giant wooden vines erupted, and launched themselves at Naruto, who was flailing helplessly in mid-air. Naruto winced when they started whipping him furiously. He could feel the sharp pain even through his protective chakra cloak. A particularly big vine slammed hard at Naruto's exposed torso, throwing him into the air. Not wasting a single second, the other vines rushed up, obviously trying to tie him up and squeeze the life out of him. Or at least, that is what would happen during a real battle to the death. These were of the most powerful plant created from the first Hokage's wood-style chakra, not the ones pulled out and grown from underground before. There's no way normal blades could help him escape now. He needs a better sword. Something powerful, a sword which spent all of its history taking the head of powerful enemies, one which was strong enough to spend more than 100 years fighting in the battlefield without even a crack or chip. A legendary sword which has reached its hilt to the realm of phantasm. And he knew what he needed, right before the sharp tips of the vines pierced through his body. Sakura held her breath. "Is that it? Is it over?" Sasuke answered her with a confident smile. His eyes didn't leave the battlefield for a second. "No, not yet. Naruto is going to make a comeback right now." Everyone turned towards the Uchiha. "How can you be so sure?" Sakura asked incredulously. Her boyfriend only answered her with a mysterious smile. "Just watch." The vines collided with Naruto, flying in mid-air, just as Hashirama expected. But... Whoosh. To the first Hokage's surprise, the vines were ripped apart in 3 loud swinging noises. And there appeared Naruto, completely unharmed. On his hand was the familiar shape of a sword all people in the training field could realize with just a glance, especially Sasuke and Sakura, the ones who had seen and struggled against it in the first real mission of their shinobi life. Kage Kirabocho, the beheading sword, one of the legendary swords of Karagakure. "Watch this, old man first," Naruto yelled, landing on the branch of a vine. "This is when we are going to make a comeback." Then he dashed down the vine. More roots erupted from the ground, aiming for him, but they were all slashed apart with just single swings of the giant sword, covered in wind chakra. For the first time since the beginning of the battle, the first Hokage showed a hint of change in his expression. Wood style, wood dragon. Instead of trees, a whole dragon made of wood burst out. With a mighty roar that shook the ground, it rushed Naruto like a train, its gaping maw threatening to swallow the Jinchuriki with one gulp. But Naruto didn't even halt his advance. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 100 Naruto copies appeared in a huge burst of smoke and threw themselves on the charging way of the dragon. "You cannot stop my jutsu with that trick," the first Hokage said, amused. But Naruto just smirked. When the wooden dragon rammed into the horde of the Naruto clones, they all exploded violently at the same time. The force of the explosion tossed the creation upward. It flailed in mid-air, but couldn't regain its balance. And Naruto knew this was his opportunity. Overcharging the copy of Kage Kirabocho on his hand with chakra, he threw it into the mouth of the wooden creation. The explosion coming from the overcharged giant sword was much greater than that of the Naruto clones just 1 second ago. A ball of fire erupted from the jaws of the dragon, melting its head like a cube of ice thrown into a blast furnace. The force of the explosion was enough to send Sakura and Sasuke down on their butts. Without the head, the body of the dragon also fell down the ground, catching fire and slowly burning away. From inside the smoke cloud, Naruto rushed out. On his hand was the largest Rasen Shuriken everyone had ever seen him use. "Watch this, old man first. This is our full power." The Jinchuriki yelled and tossed the massive Rasen Shuriken at the undead Hokage. Naruto's most powerful jutsu tore apart everything on its way, and it seemed even the mighty Hashirama Senju couldn't do anything to stop it now. Then Naruto felt it. No. It couldn't be. A gigantic amount of nature chakra was gathering up at where the first Hokage was standing. Sage art wood style, true several thousand hands. Hiruzen's eyes widened. "Take cover, everyone." The gigantic wooden Buddha statue appeared on the way and took the whole force of Naruto's jutsu. The tornado it created when the jutsu collided with the statue was so great it tossed both Naruto and the first Hokage away. The whole forest around Training Ground 7 was uprooted violently by the force of the wind, and a gaping spherical hole formed at the center of the training ground, right where the two jutsu collided. Two human figures fell to the ground at two opposite sides of the hole with two loud thuds. "What the hell is that?" Sakura gasped, climbing out of the makeshift shelter she had just hastily dug for everyone to jump down right before the two techniques clashed against each other, which is now filled with debris of all sizes. Armageddon? Ragnarok? Wait, what the hell is Ragnarok anyway? Lying on the ground, Naruto groaned. Even with all of his power spent, that's everything he could do. Hashirama Senju really deserved the moniker God of Shinobi. He was the most powerful opponent he had ever met in his life. The power he had just shown could rival even that of Madara with all the modifications made by Kabuto. Had he arrived at the battlefield a little bit earlier, before the reincarnated Madara could have regained both of his Rinnegan, the war might have had a completely different conclusion. "How do you feel?" Giving a tired groan, Naruto pushed himself up from the ground. "Like my body had just been put into a freaking mortar, slammed through and through, smashed up and down and then tossed to the garbage dump for dogs to chew on. This is just too much for me, even with everything I got." The first Hokage grinned, and reached out a hand for Naruto to grab to stand up. "You did a good job, actually. No one before had ever given me a battle which I enjoyed as much as this one." However, Naruto's stomach tensed up. He had been dreading this answer since the beginning of the fight, and, "You won't accept me as your apprentice, will you?" The undead Hokage shook his head. "I'm afraid I can't." Naruto let go of the first Hokage's hand. He had expected that answer, but for some reasons, he still felt a mix of anger, sadness and disappointment boiling inside him. "Why?" he asked bitterly. "Is it because I am too weak?" What the first Hokage answered him with completely took Naruto aback. "No. In fact, it is because you are already too powerful." Seeing the Jinchuriki and everyone else's flabbergasted look, the Hokage laughed. "I'm serious. I have to say, if I hadn't had this indestructible body, I would have gotten a very difficult time fighting against you. You don't actually need to learn anything from me. At least, anything that is compatible with your fighting style, unpredictable and full of surprises. From now on, you have to develop your ability in your own ways. That's the best advice I can give you for now. Although..." He suddenly grinned. "If you need a sparring partner, I'm always ready." Then he turned away, stretching his back in the process. "Now, time to go back and have some ramen." "You're right, Saru, the ramen of Ichiraku is the best thing I've ever tasted. Even though I don't actually need to eat." He disappeared in a whoosh. "So, who is going to clean this mess up?" Everyone groaned when looking at the uprooted forest behind them. Sasuke took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Gripping his weapon, now in bow form, tightly, he tensed up and let his senses reach out to the surrounding. Everything around him appeared vividly in his mind: the empty field, the wind blowing across the field, the sound of squirrels running on the branches, the sound of something whizzing through the air, aiming at him. There. Arrows flew, and struck the kunais flying at him in the middle of the air at their tips, one by one. The last arrow was even shot with so much power that it split the kunai made of very good steel in half. Finally finished, the Uchiha allowed himself to exhale in relaxation. Good shot. Instinctively, the Uchiha raised his weapon again when he heard the voice, but immediately stopped when he realized who its source was. He bowed. "Lord Second." Tobirama Senju walked into the training ground in the Uchiha compound and grumbled while looking around. "This place still hasn't changed after all those years, huh? How did you get here?" Sasuke asked, a little bit more rudely than he intended to. "This is the private training ground of the Uchiha clan." The second Hokage looked at Sasuke with an amused eye. "Think I spied on you to find the way to get here?" "No, some of my old friends and students were Uchiha. And they invited me here sometimes, either for visiting or training. I knew the way to get here a long time ago." Hearing that, Sasuke didn't ask any further. He just turned away and started gathering the kunai scattering on the ground, which he had just used for target practice. "Seems someone took note of my research on materializing chakra," the second Hokage noted, picking up the kunai that was split in half by Sasuke's chakra arrow. "Never seen any weapon that was made with so much love and skills before." "Thank you very much. I am really flattered," the weapon answered, much to Tobirama's interest. "Lord Second, can I ask you a question?" The undead Hokage didn't even blink before such a sudden request from Sasuke. "As long as it is within what I can answer, sure. What do you want to know? Why did you decide to isolate the Uchiha clan by assigning them to the police force?" Tobirama stopped dead on his track. He turned back to the Uchiha and looked at him with a calculating stare. Finally, he spoke, but not with an answer. "Before I answer you, I want to ask you something first. Do you truly believe that by assigning the Uchiha clan the police force of the village, I isolated them from everyone else?" The question took Sasuke aback. He didn't even think about this before. Finally, after a few seconds contemplating, he answered honestly. "I've never thought about that before. I mean, that was what we were told by most people in our family, so I used to believe it. Personally, I think I can now understand why some people in my clan thought so. The Uchiha clan is a warrior clan, they surely won't appreciate being restricted inside the village with a dull job. Maybe that's why they thought that you were trying to isolate them." Stopping a few seconds, he added. "And Madara's influence too. He was the first one who said that, after all." Tobirama didn't give a response for a while. Finally, he closed his eyes and chuckled. "I have to say that you are one of the wisest Uchiha I've ever met. Most of the Uchiha I know always jump to the worst conclusion about someone even though they only hear one single sentence that person said. For some reason, hearing that from you doesn't cheer me up any little bit," Sasuke snarked in his head. "However, I have to say that using the position to somewhat restrain the Uchiha during my time was a part of my intention." Seeing Sasuke's face, he continued with a serious expression. "From my research, I found out that the reason the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan could manifest and evolve is the extreme feeling in the wielder's heart. The deeper, more intense the feeling in their heart is, the more powerful their Dojutsu would become. I think you also knew that, didn't you?" Sasuke nodded. "Before, I thought that the problem with the Uchiha was something of genetic nature, that awakening the Sharingan somehow released some kind of malignant stimulation on the wielder's brain, damaging their brain in the process and make them lose all restraint in their emotion, causing the bloodlust and power hunger we saw in most of the Uchiha clan members. However, after meeting that one person, I had to conclude that my hypothesis was wrong." Sasuke blinked. "Who?" "My subordinate, Kagami Uchiha. He was a very powerful Sharingan user, and one of the rare people in the Uchiha clan who managed to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan during my time." The name Kagami startled Sasuke. That name was so familiar, but at that moment he couldn't remember whose name it was. "Kagami was a model Uchiha, I have to say," the undead Hokage continued. "He was extremely devoted to his clan, but at the same time, his dedication to the peace and safety of the village was more than that of anyone I can remember. Even though he had the Mangekyo Sharingan, he didn't have the bloodlust or power hunger most of the Uchiha clan had. And don't get me wrong, he didn't even need the Mangekyo Sharingan to be strong. In fact, he tried to avoid using the power of his advanced Dojutsu as much as possible, unlike his fellow Uchiha, and yet he was still an incredibly skilled shinobi on his own. He was actually one of my first choices for the position of Hokage before I passed the title to Hiruzen, not only because he was powerful, but also because of his righteous heart. After I met Kagami, I did some secret research on the Uchiha clan myself, and I found that not only Kagami, but there were also a lot of other Uchiha who were just like him. Thanks to that, I realized that the real problem wasn't caused by any kind of damage to the Uchiha's brains by the Sharingan, because if that had been the case, every Uchiha who awakened their Sharingan should have had the same symptoms. Then, Sasuke actually didn't need Tobirama to respond. He already realized what the answer would be. The problem was simply that thanks to the power the Sharingan bestowed them, the Uchiha clan gradually developed a superiority complex towards everyone else in the village. While they were still a prestigious clan of Konoha, they were feared not only by shinobi, but also by civilians because of their bloodlust and thirst of power, made worse by their pride of the power from the Sharingan itself. Leaving them in charge of positions with power in the shinobi force was not a wise idea, especially with the tension in the village at that time towards the clan itself. Therefore, I had to resort to assigning them to the Konoha police force, not only to ease the tension, but also to restrain the ever-growing bloodlust and power hunger of a generation who relied solely on hatred and pain for strength, channeling their power into something beneficial. The police force, while not having a lot of works related to the shinobi force, is still a very prestigious position in the village with great control over the security and safety of the village. I had hoped that the following generations would ease up and become wiser about abusing their Sharingan, but Sasuke didn't have anything to say about that. What the second Hokage had just said made sense. Even Sasuke himself had to agree that the Uchiha clan was too proud of their power. However, Lord Second, if it was you who possessed power instead of the Uchiha clan, what would you do in that case? Tobirama snapped his head back with a speed that Sasuke thought his head was going to be ripped off his neck. The Uchiha tensed up, he knew that he had just slipped his mouth. He braced himself, waiting for disaster to strike. But then, the undead Hokage laughed. A heartfelt, satisfied laughter, with absolutely no anger hidden inside. "You're interesting, kid. Very interesting. This is the first time in Uchiha. No, scratch that. Anyone dares asking me that question. Very interesting. I like you, kid." Sasuke was dumbstruck by the reaction. What is your name?" Sasuke Uchiha, sir," Sasuke answered hesitantly. "Alright, Sasuke." Tobirama sat down on a log nearby and looked straight at Sasuke's face. "To answer your question, first, I have to say that someone not born with power can never fully understand someone who is given power from birth, and vice versa. Therefore, I can't tell you exactly what I would do had I been given powers like the Uchiha from birth, because even if I do, it will just be a theory that would never happen. However, there is still something else I learned during the time I lived in this world. With great power comes great responsibility. If you have incredible power but no moral, you will just be a tyrant, no more, no less. You would just end up destroying yourself together with the people you're supposed to rule over. If I had been born with great power like the Uchiha, I might not have learned that lesson and would have ended up isolated and destroyed by someone, maybe by the Uchiha clan themselves, who knows?" Sasuke was stunned. "So you mean?" "Yes," the Hokage nodded with a serious face. "I admit that if I were in the Uchiha's place, I might have been as bad as them when it comes to power. But if that had actually been the case, I wouldn't have become Hokage, that's for sure, and I wouldn't have any right to talk about this with you right now. In this world, there is no if, and as the leader of the village, it's my duty to choose the best way not only for the Uchiha clan, but also for everyone else in the village. Everyone can become a king, but only people who truly care about the benefit of all their subordinates deserve to become leaders. That was the reason why Madara wasn't chosen to be Hokage, even though Hashirama himself nominated for him. He didn't care about anything else but himself. If someone like him were allowed to lead the village, it would just lead to a ruination." There was only silence while Sasuke digested this. The silence was only broken by the appearance of another person on the training ground. "Sasuke, have you Fini?" "Oh, excuse me. It's all right," Tobirama answered, standing up from where he was sitting. "I think this is enough for today, anyway." He stood up from where he was sitting, and started walking away. However, before leaving, the Hokage turned back and looked at Sasuke. "I am thinking of continuing the researches I left behind when I died. You seem to be someone who is interested in integrating technology into ninja techniques. If you want, I would like you to be my research partner. Feel free to come to the Senju estate to meet me if you accept, Sasuke Uchiha." With those words, the second Hokage left. The Uchiha could swear that he saw a small smile at the corner of the white-haired man before he disappeared in a white flash. "What happened?" Itachi asked, walking into the training ground. "Did something happen between you and him?" The younger Uchiha shook his head. "No, it's nothing. He just came to talk to me about things related to the Uchiha clan in the past, that's all." "I see," Itachi nodded with a slight smile. "In a split second I thought you were going to pick a fight with him or something. I'm all over that age already, you know." Sasuke glared at his brother. And then he remembered something he was going to ask. "Itachi, do you know who Kagami Uchiha is? I thought that name was familiar, but I couldn't remember." "Ah, Kagami-san." Itachi closed his eyes with a chuckle. "That's a name I haven't heard for quite a while. It's not strange that you remember him, after all, he's someone quite close to our family." "Really? Who is he?" Itachi opened his eyes again, and stared into the sky with a look full of nostalgia. He was Shisui's grandfather. Sakura ducked right before Lee's rolling kick soared over her head, strong enough that it caused a ripple in the air and a loud wheezing noise. Not stopping a beat, she used the momentum to spring herself back up, sending a nasty uppercut at the other taijutsu specialist. But Lee only needed to lean back to avoid the attack. Landing on his hand, he delivered a low sweep at Sakura's unprotected right heel. It hit, sending the kunoichi on her back. Before she could touch the ground, however, Sakura had reached out her hands and launched a jet step with her palms. The jet propulsion pushed her upwards and allowed her to regain balance in mid-air. Now, another jet step shot out from her left foot, and with the momentum, she sent her own spinning kick back at Lee, who had just stood up. The kick tore the air apart, aiming for the taijutsu specialist head. But he only needed to raise his arm to block it. The two combatants landed on the ground a few steps away from each other. Without a word, they launched themselves at each other again, fists slashing out. Alright, that's enough. Sakura's fist stopped just an inch from Lee's face upon Guy's command. At the same time, Lee's fist was also only an inch away from the girl's chin. I guess it's time to call it a day here, Sakura-chan. The taijutsu specialist gave the medic a thumb up with a blinding smile. You have become much better in taijutsu than before, indeed. Training with you is my greatest pleasure. You are awesome too, Lee-kun, Sakura answered with her own sincere smile. Even training with the wolves wasn't as effective as sparring with you. I learned a lot just through trading blows with you and Guy-sensei. You don't have to be so modest, Sakura-kun, Guy said, slapping her back so hard she nearly choked from the sheer force of the hit. Learning a taijutsu style is one thing, but learning it then using it to improve your own taijutsu style is a completely different thing, much more difficult to do. And you managed to combine with the speed of the wolf fang fist and the power of the strong fist with the flexibility of your own taijutsu style. You should be proud of that. Besides, to think you managed to master the use of 5 of the 8 gates in just 3 months of training. You really are a genius among geniuses, Sakura-kun. I don't regret ever teaching you my signature technique. Sakura beamed hearing those words from the taijutsu master. Thank you, Guy-sensei. To be honest, I didn't think I would be able to make it this far, either. Then she remembered something. Oh, about the thing I told you the other day. Absolutely not. Sakura was taken aback with the abrupt declaration of the taijutsu master. But why? I think I already figured out all the necessary condition and requirements. If I have a chance to. I strictly forbid you from even thinking about that, Sakura-kun. Guy looked at the medic with a stern gaze. I respect your wish of becoming stronger, but destroying yourself in the process is just not worth it. Even if you actually managed to do it, it would still take you everything you have just to make it work, a self-destructing technique. Not only is it dangerous, it is also inefficient. Don't even think about it, Sakura-kun. Aniki, one of the very rare masters of the Kage Dota particle style, also one of the oldest shinobi who were still active in the world, and the third Tsuchikage of Iwagakure, looked up in annoyance from his paperwork when Jiraiya of the Sannin walked into his chamber. What do you want, Jiraiya? While I enjoy your stories, I would appreciate it if you notice me in advance before barging into my village like this. The Toad Sage just gave him a cheeky grin and plopped down on the chair in front of the Tsuchikage's desk. Come now, old man. It's not like this is the first time I arrive here in that fashion, right? Surely you can ignore that, just like the other times I was here. Not after you and your 2 Jinchuriki brats came and made a mess out of my village a year ago, Aniki exploded. A whole month with no ramen and ice cream for the whole village, just because those brats came and ate everything of every store we have here. And the pranks. Do you know how hard it was to get the pink paint off every building in the village? Not to mention Roshi and the quirks he suddenly developed after meeting you and that Naruto brat. Roshi. The one used to be famous for being the most level-headed and collected shinobi of Iwagakure even in battle. What do you have to say about that? Huh? Somewhere outside the office, screams which could vaguely be heard as Zeke. Pervert. And come here baby. Let me purge you of the evil inside your body. Echoed through the air. Jiraiya scratched his head awkwardly. Well, I guess that might be my fault. Damn right it is, the Tsuchikage grumbled. So what business do you have here? If it's just for your own fun, go away because I don't have time for any kind of shenanigan you are going to make at the bathhouse or anywhere in the village. Of course I have my own business, the Toad Sage grinned. He pulled out a scroll from his pocket and placed it on the Tsuchikage's desk. This is a letter from the Hokage to you. Read it and you will understand. Aniki opened the scroll with a wary look still fixated on Jiraiya's face. Upon reading the letter, he frowned. A Kage summit about the upcoming international Chunin exam? What is the meaning of this? It is exactly what you have just read, old man. Jiraiya looked at the older man with a serious expression. You remember that Kage was attacked a month ago by the leader of the Akatsuki, don't you? They are not in the shape to hold a Chunin exam at the moment, so they passed the duty of holding the exam to Konoha. And so? The Tsuchikage scoffed. We are not in your so-called alliance, there is no reason for the Hokage to invite our village to your exam. We don't have the precedent of promoting a Chunin through an international exam, anyway. Then, isn't this the chance for you to have something else for a change? Jiraiya answered cheerfully. It is your opportunity to show off the power of your shinobi to every other country in the continent, as well as a way to lead Iwagakure out of the long era of isolation. These days, doing everything alone is not a wise choice, you know. The Tsuchikage leaned over his desk. And what would we gain from doing that? Jiraiya shrugged. Well, a lot of things, I guess. This is an opportunity to strengthen the relationship between the 5 great villages, as well as between the great villages and the minor villages in the continent. My sensei intended for this Chunin exam to be the greatest in history, after all. Besides, if your village manages to give a good performance in the exam, it will probably bring your village quite a flow of new missions, just like how it did to Konoha and other villages who took part in the exam before. And trust me, I know your village has been craving for missions for quite a long time. Aniki bristled. What my village wants isn't your concern. I know, the Toad Sage answered smoothly. But it is your concern, isn't it? What Jiraiya said struck the Tsuchikage bullseye. Finally, he grumbled. Fine. I will humor myself with your exam for once. But what's with the Cage Summit? If the reason is just the Chunin exam, a formal invitation and someone with your convincing skill are enough, Jiraiya chuckled. Well, this summit is actually not about the exam. There is something Konoha wants to tell all the leaders of the great villages related to the security issues of the continent at the moment. It is not wise to write it in a letter or something like that, so I'm here to tell you about that personally, under the order of our Hokage. Aniki's eyes gleamed. So the Chunin exam is just an excuse, huh? When have I ever said that? Jiraiya smirked while standing up and walking out of the office. First, as the current Hokage, I would like to extend our welcome to all of you, the Kage of every great village in the continent, to our humble village. The Kage of the 5 great villages were now standing in the council chamber of Konoha, now refurbished for the 5 Kage meeting. It's our pleasure, Lord Hokage, Mei Terumi said pleasantly. After what happened to our village, it's a good thing to finally be able to escape from all the repair work for a while. More like, we have to thank Konoha for your timely assistance. It is also our pleasure to assist our allies, Lady Mizukage. Hiruzen also smiled back. Cut to the point already, Sarutobi. Everyone turned towards Aniki, who had just growled out those words. Jiraiya told me that there is a reason you call all of us here today, other than just for the Chunin exam. I think it's time for you to spill it. What do you actually want from us? The voice full of hostility from the Tsuchikage made everyone turn towards Hiruzen again. The Hokage had stopped smiling. On his face, there was now a grim, but not hostile, expression. Finally, it was Gaara who spoke up first. Lord Hokage, is there anything you are hiding from us? The Hokage sighed. I was hoping to hold this until after we finished discussing about the incoming Chunin exam, but it seems I have to talk about it now. First, I want all of you to meet 2 people. I think some of you already knew them. The Kage's eyes narrowed. Who? So these are the current 5 Kage? Have to say, I'm not that impressed. Everyone, except for Hiruzen, snapped their heads back towards the voice. You shouldn't say that, Tobirama. They saw Hashirama Senju, the first Hokage, scolding his brother. No matter what, they are still Kage of great villages, and we have to show them respect. Silence filled the air for exactly 5 seconds. Then the meeting room broke into chaos. I knew it. The 4th Raikage bellowed, jumping out of his chair. Lightning chakra immediately covered his body and formed his signature lightning armor jutsu. This is just a ploy. You invite all of the Kage here, using that so-called Chunin exam as an excuse, gathering us in one place in order to deal with all of us once and for all? Well, too bad. I'm not going to let you win without a fight. That's right. Aniki also growled, floating upward from his seat. His hands formed the necessary seals for his particle style. Even though we are no match for all 3 of you here, we are not going to let you do whatever you want. All of the 2 Kage's guards also jumped up and brandished their weapons, ready for a fight to the death. Then suddenly all of them felt their bodies being covered in sand. They struggled, but the sand had bound them up too tightly they couldn't even move a muscle. Kage! Screamed, glaring at Gaara, who had just commanded his son to restrain them. What is the meaning of this? The young Kage answered him calmly, not even moving from where he was sitting. You should calm down, Lord Sachikage, Lord Reikage. This is a meeting room, not a place to make a fight. Aniki gritted his teeth. So you are on Konoha's side. Look, you are making a fuss for no reason at all. Even though his expression was still as stoic as possible, in Gaara's voice, the hint of annoyance was starting to show very clearly. If they really wanted to kill us, do you really think that they needed to go this far and arrange a cage summit for it? They have 2 legendary Sannin, 2 Jinchuriki who have total control over their tailed beasts, the 2 last remaining Uchiha with fully powered Sharingan in their rank, the whole Hyuga clan, and as we can see now, 3 most powerful Kage in existence ever. They could have just ganged us up and beat our asses back and forth 100 times right when we set foot into the village if they had really wanted to do something to us. Gaara's reasoning was so convincing the other 2 male Kage couldn't do anything but growling in defeat. Seeing them relaxing, Gaara released them from their sand cages, but his sand still hovered around to be able to immediately act if something else happened. I like that Kage boy already, Hashirama nudged his brother, who glared at him in annoyance. I agree with Lord Kage, Mei said, narrowing her eyes at the 2 undead Hokage warily. It's obvious she still couldn't forget the titanic battle in Konoha years ago, which she had been a participant of. But if that's the case, I would like an explanation from you, Lord Hokage. Why are the first and second Hokage here now? A few days ago, Orochimaru broke into our secret vault and stole the only way to unseal the Reaper Death Seal. The familiar name made Aniki blank. Isn't that the unbreakable sealing jutsu of the Uzumaki clan which took the 4th Hokage's life years ago? Yes, Hiruzen nodded grimly. And I don't see why Orochimaru would want anything with that other than to unseal the content inside it. The only thing that has been sealed with that jutsu in history is the soul of the 4th Hokage, together with half of the 9-tailed fox he managed to bring with him. Those words sent a chill to the spines of everyone else in the room. So, croaked out in a strained voice, you think that Orochimaru is going to revive the 4th Hokage with that? Not only the 4th Hokage, but also the other half of the 9-tailed fox, the 3rd Hokage answered with a nod. And as we already knew about Orochimaru's proficiency with the Impure World Reincarnation Jutsu, we cannot know for sure how many other legendary shinobi he managed to bring back from the death. We only managed to take back the control of 2 of the most powerful shinobi he can possibly summon. At least under our hand, they won't destroy anything within their lines of sight, as Lady Mizukage here already experienced 4 years ago, he added, carefully choosing the words. And that means, Mei said slowly, another shinobi world war might be coming. Yes, Tobirama finished the sentence for her. Silence once again filled the room. Then, what a load of bullcrap. Everyone turned towards A, who had just snarled those words. Everything you have just said is just conjectures based on the words of Konoha alone, the Reikage growled. What proof do you have to show that it was the same as you said? From what we know, this might as well be a trick of Konoha to force us into doing their dirty works. You might actually have been the one who summoned the 2 weapons of mass destruction over there as a leverage to force us into submission, not Orochimaru. How dare you speak of our Lord Hokage like? One of Hiruzen's Anbu guards raised his voice angrily, but the 3rd Hokage immediately shut him up with a meaningful glare. Then he felt a hand grabbing his shoulder. You must let little Saru deal with this. The voice of the 1st Hokage rose next to his ears. He knows better than all of us here what to do. From the table, Hiruzen Sarutobi spoke with a calm, but serious and full of authority, voice. I know that, considering our relationship in the past, you are not going to believe our words immediately. Therefore, I would like to make a proposal. As the Hokage of Konohagakure, the Hidden Leaf Village, and the current controller of the 1st and the 2nd Hokage, I am going to swear an oath that they will not, in any circumstances except for a direct attack into Konohagakure from one, or a group of invaders, join any military activity or take any shinobi mission from Konoha, or any other villages. And after Orochimaru is completely killed, the jutsu will be undone and they will return to the Pure Land immediately, without any question. In exchange for that, the other great villages will assist Konoha in finding and capturing Orochimaru, as quickly as possible. The proposal of the 3rd Hokage stunned everyone in the room. No one could even think that Konoha would give up a power so great in their possession so easily without even a thought like that. Only a still sneered. Big talk. An oath, at the end, is still simply empty words. How can we know that you will keep your word after everything is done? It's true, Hiruzen nodded without even skipping a beat. That is why the oath would be signed in the form of a blood oath, with me as the one under its bound and all 4 other Kage as the oath keepers. Now even the boisterous Reikage was shocked into silence. He just slumped back into his chair, unable to speak a word. We will need some of your blood to write the oath and sign it, Kage of the Four Great Villages, Hiruzen continued as if nothing had happened. He pulled out a kunai and calmly sliced his palm. Blood dripped into a bowl placed under his hand. The bowl was then passed to the other Kage, who added their own blood into the mixture. When the bowl arrived in front of A, he scowled and was actually hesitating a little bit before asking. "Why are you doing this, Hokage? This doesn't give you or your village any benefit. Why forcing yourself to do something like this just because of a mere missing nin?" "Because I don't have any other goal except for the lasting peace of Konoha as well as the world," Hiruzen only answered simply. No, when Orochimaru gets his hand on the necessary tool he needs, it will be a war Konoha alone cannot face. It will require the unification of all the great villages' power in order to deal with the incoming war. Not to mention the Akatsuki are still out there, with a leader holding the legendary Rinnegan, who has just destroyed Karakura a few weeks ago. Therefore, the only thing I need right now is your trust, and your assistance. The Rikage grunted, but after a few seconds of hesitation, he pulled out a kunai and cut his own hand to add his blood into the bowl. Once all the blood of the 5 Kage had been added into the bowl, Hiruzen took it, and started using the mixture as ink to write into a large scroll. The blood oath is not simply a way to record an oath, it is also a very advanced sealing jutsu, Hashirama explained with a smirk. It is impossible to break an oath signed that form unless you want to die in a horrible way. Very useful if you want to force someone to make an unbreakable promise, or keep a very important secret forever a secret. Finally, the scroll was completed, and now it was laid bare in front of the 5 Kage. There were 5 spiral-shaped seals surrounding the lines of text. "Please place your right hand on top of those seals," the Hokage instructed. When all the 5 Kage were in their places, he said, "On the count of 3, please pump your chakra into the seals. 1, 2, 3. The room immediately glowed. Chakra poured out of the Kage's bodies into the scroll and swirled around the room, creating a small typhoon blowing the unexpecting people down their butts. Each word written in the scroll was also glowing in an eerie light, and the Kage felt like their hands were stuck on the scroll. They struggled, but couldn't seem to even move their fingers. Their chakra was drained from their body in an absurdly quick pace. Then suddenly, just like it started, everything stopped. The Kage immediately moved away from the scroll, panting. What is that?" May gasped in her breaths. "The contract is established. Now, the blood oath is in effect." Hiruzen lifted the scroll, now filled with dark red, still slightly glowing words written from their blood. "Starting from now, I hope that the great villages would do their best to help us find and capture Orochimaru." The 4 Kage didn't say anything. They were still in a daze after such an astounding experience. It wasn't like they hadn't heard about the blood oath before, but to actually be a part of one, not to mention one in such a large scale, was a completely different thing. It felt like they had just been a part of some magically binding grand contract which decided the fate of the whole world. Then again, it's not too far-fetched to say that they had just decided the fate of the world by signing the blood oath. "So that's everything, huh? Now can we get out of here?" Aniki growled, starting to rise from his seat. But Hiruzen stopped him with a smile. "Don't be so hasty, Lord Tsuchikage," the Hokage said. "Now that we have all agreed about the Orochimaru problem, I have one more proposal to make. It is about the formation of an international Chunin exam between every village and nation in the continent." "No way in hell." Tobirama grimaced in disdain. "Well, just like expected. I have tolerated your disrespect for quite some time, but this is the end of the line, Hokage." The 4th Rikage slammed his fist on the table angrily. "How dare you suggest that after everything you did to us in the past? The 3rd Shinobi World War, the Hyuga incident. Actually, the Hyuga incident was actually your village's fault," Lord Rikage, Kakashi, who was standing next to Hiruzen, pointed out lazily. "How dare you?" The Rikage glared at him, his hair started rising and his fist clenched up. Spark flared up from his skin. Everyone in the room tensed, ready for a fight to break out. "Enough." The surprisingly sharp voice coming from the Tsuchikage turned everyone's heads again. Aniki floated up from his seat, and, ignoring the fuming Rikage, he glided towards Hiruzen, who was calmly looking at him without a single hint of wavering. "What exactly is your intention when you think about that idea, Sarutobi?" He stared straight into the eyes of the other man. "You know that the great villages don't have good relationship in history. Do you really think just with your words, you can erase nearly 100 years of hostility between our villages? I know that doing something like that is impossible with just empty words." Hiruzen nodded. "That is why I want to do it with action. Hostility between the great villages has lasted for too long, And I think we all know that our future generations are not going to end well if that goes on. So why shouldn't we take a step forward and try to solve it on our own? The Chunin exam was proposed by our first Hokage in the past to strengthen our bonds with our allies, so I wanted to take it further and make it a way to mend the relationship between Konoha and the ones we waged war against in the past, as well as allowing other villages to form good relationships against each other. This is also a way to prepare for the incoming war against Orochimaru and the Akatsuki. With the Chunin exam, all villages would be able to find the most potential shinobi and give them proper training in order to make them more powerful, bolstering their village's rank. Isn't that a win-win situation for you? To hell with this. Snapped. It seemed he couldn't hold back his anger anymore. Kumagakure is never going to take part in any alliance, or any kind of activity that involved Konohagakure in it. And mark my words, you are never going to change my mind about this, never. Then he stormed out of the chamber without even looking back. His guards looked at each other nervously, then followed him out, but not before throwing back an apologetic glance. Now that's just rude, Mei commented after the Kumagakure shinobi had all left the chamber. Just like the first Raikage I know, Tobirama shook his head. He never wanted to listen to anyone. I'm surprised that the village still managed to survive until this day. So what about you, Lord Tsuchikage? Hiruzen turned towards Anaki. I have explained everything about the incoming plan. I hope you already reached your decision. The old Tsuchikage stayed silent for a while. Then, he said in a careful tone. Iwagakure will think about it. We will send some of our shinobi to join your Chunin exam, but don't ever think that we will enter any kind of alliance or cooperation with you after that. After all, Iwagakure still owes Konoha a favor when your shinobi brought back our Jinchuriki. Consider this a repayment. Hiruzen smiled. That's everything we need to hear. Why do you agree to the Hokage's proposal so easily, grandfather? Kurotsuchi, one of Anaki's special guards, asked when they left the meeting chamber on their way back to their hotel. Even though they helped us, the two villages have never been on good terms in the past. Why do you suddenly decide to do something that we never had precedent before like that? The old Tsuchikage chuckled. Honestly, I don't know. Probably because all the years full of constant wars are starting to exhaust me. Wars taught me that I cannot trust anyone. But a certain brat has taught me that maybe I should start opening my heart a bit. Kurotsuchi grinned. It's Naruto Uzumaki, isn't it? Yeah, Anaki chuckled again. Maybe it's time to put all of the past aside and start thinking of a new future with you youngsters as the ones who lead us. Might be better for all of us than letting old guys like myself dictate your future. Two shadows flickered on the walls of a dark chamber. So, the summons of the first and second Hokage were a failure, Orochimaru-sama. The other shadow, now identified as Orochimaru, frowned. That's right. This shouldn't be happening. Unless Sarutobi-sensei decided to summon those two before us. I didn't expect someone like that old monkey could go that far just to stop us. Suddenly his face twisted into a sinister smile. But there is no need for them anymore. These two alone are enough for us to take down a great village already. And with the army I'm building, soon, my ambition will be fulfilled. Inside the two caskets in front of him, it was possible to see a glimpse of red and blonde hair.
That's it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on my other social media accounts. Anime God here, and I'm signing off.